Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Weight of Silence. Derek Holbrook stood at his kitchen window, watching the rain streak down the glass like tears he'd never allow himself to shed. At 42, he carried himself with the rigid posture of a man who'd learned that vulnerability was a luxury he couldn't afford. His weathered hands, scarred from years of military service before building his private security empire, gripped his coffee mug with controlled force. Behind him, Emma sat at the breakfast table, methodically eating her cereal in complete silence. For 3 months now, since his 15-year-old daughter had moved in following what his wife Brianna called adjustment issues at her previous living arrangement, she hadn't spoken a single word. Not to him, not to Brianna, not to anyone. Derek turned from the window, studying his daughter's pale face. Emma had always been quiet, but this was different. There was something haunted in her green eyes, something that reminded him of the shell-shocked soldiers he'd served with in Afghanistan. When he asked her questions, she would only shake her head or nod, her responses growing more trembling with each passing day. Emma, you know you can tell me anything, right? Derek's voice carried the same commanding tone that had once directed tactical operations. Whatever happened before you came here? She flinched, nearly dropping her spoon. Her eyes darted toward the stairs where Brianna's morning routine could be heard. The hairdryer, the opening and closing of drawers. Emma's reaction wasn't lost on Derek. It never was when Brianna was nearby. Derek had built Sentinel security from nothing, using the skills he'd acquired in special operations to protect high-value targets and conduct corporate investigations. His clients paid premium rates because Derek Holbrook never missed details, never overlooked patterns, and never forgot when someone crossed him. Those same instincts now told him that his daughter's silence wasn't teenage rebellion. It was fear. Brianna descended the stairs, her auburn hair perfectly styled, her smile as practiced as everything else about her. At 38, she maintained the appearance of the devoted wife, but Derek had begun noticing the cracks in her performance. The way she checked her phone constantly, the unexplained absences, the defensiveness when he asked simple questions about her day. "Morning, baby," she said, kissing Derek's cheek with lips that felt cold. "I'll be late tonight. Book club." Derek had checked. There was no book club. "Which book are you reading?" he asked casually. "Oh, some romance thing. Nothing you'd be interested in." She grabbed her purse, avoiding eye contact. "Emma, sweetie, try to talk to your father today, okay? This silent treatment is getting old." Emma's shoulders tensed, and she pushed her cereal around the bowl with increasing agitation. Derek noticed how his daughter's breathing became shallow whenever Brianna spoke directly to her. After Brianna left, Derek sat across from Emma. "She's gone for the day," he said quietly. "It's just us." Emma looked up, and for a moment, Derek saw something flicker in her eyes. Hope? Maybe, or desperation. But she remained silent, shaking her head when he pressed gently for answers. Derek had survived firefights in Kandahar, had built a business empire through sheer will and calculated ruthlessness, but his daughter's silence was defeating him in ways enemy bullets never could. He'd always prided himself on protecting what was his, on never letting anyone hurt those under his care. Yet something was hurting Emma, and he couldn't identify the threat. That evening, Derek sat in his home office reviewing security footage from his various clients, but his mind kept drifting to Emma's fearful glances and Brianna's increasingly frequent lies. His wife of 16 years was hiding something, and his instincts, honed by years of detecting deception, told him it was connected to Emma's sudden muteness. Derek Holbrook had never been a forgiving man. In the military, mercy was a weakness that got good soldiers killed. In business, showing compassion to competitors or dishonest employees was a fast track to failure. He'd built his life on the principle that betrayal demanded consequences, that trust, once broken, could never be repaired. As he locked up the house and checked on Emma, who pretended to sleep when he knocked, Derek made a silent vow. Whatever was happening in his home, whatever was causing his daughter's terror and his wife's deception, he would uncover it, And when he did, there would be no forgiveness, no second chances, no mercy. The rain continued to fall, and Derek Holbrook began to plan. Chapter 2. The Breaking Point. 3 days later, Brianna announced another evening out, this time a girls' night, with colleagues Derek had never met. She left in a cloud of expensive perfume and nervous energy, kissing Emma's forehead in a gesture that made the girl recoil. Derek waited until Brianna's car disappeared down their tree-lined street before approaching Emma, who sat curled on the living room couch, staring blankly at a television show she wasn't really watching. Emma. Derek's voice was gentler than usual, the tone he'd once used to coax information from frightened civilians in war zones. Your mother's gone. She won't be back for hours. Emma's head turned slightly, her green eyes meeting his for the first time in weeks. Whatever you're afraid of, whatever's keeping you quiet, I need to know. I can't protect you if I don't understand the threat. Emma's lower lip trembled. She glanced toward the front door, then back at Derek, as if weighing invisible scales of terror. It's okay, Derek continued, sitting on the edge of the coffee table to face her directly. No one will get mad. I promise you that. The words seemed to unlock something in Emma. She trembled, her hands clasping and unclasping in her lap. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper, hoarse from months of disuse. Dad, there's something I have to tell you. Derek's heart hammered against his ribs, but his expression remained calm, controlled. I'm listening. Mom. Emma's voice cracked. Mom and Tyler, they've been together. For a long time. Before I moved here. Tyler. Derek knew the name. Tyler Morrison. A personal trainer at Brianna's gym, 10 years younger than his wife, all charm and empty promises. Derek had met him once, had immediately disliked the predatory way the man looked at women, the entitled smirk that suggested he was used to taking what he wanted. How long? Derek's voice remained steady, but something cold and deadly stirred in his chest. 2 years, maybe more. I caught them at Tyler's apartment when I was supposed to be at a sleepover. They saw me. Derek's hands clenched into fists. What did they do, Emma? They said if I told anyone, especially you, that terrible things would happen. Tyler said he knew people who could make me disappear, and Mom. Emma's voice broke completely. Mom said she'd choose Tyler over both of us if I ruined her happiness. The cold feeling in Derek's chest spread outward, freezing his blood, sharpening his focus. Is that why you stopped talking? Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face. Tyler said if I couldn't be trusted to keep quiet, maybe I shouldn't talk at all. And Mom agreed. She said I was being dramatic, that I didn't understand adult relationships. Derek stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside, the suburban street looked peaceful, normal. Inside, his world had just shifted on its axis. Not just because of the affair, though that betrayal cut deep, but because they had threatened his daughter. They had used fear and intimidation to silence a child. Dad! Emma's voice was small, uncertain. Are you mad at me? Derek turned, his expression softening for a moment. No, sweetheart. I'm not mad at you. I'm proud of you for telling me. He walked to his desk, pulled out his cell phone, and dialed a number he knew by heart. Detective Rodriguez? It's Derek Holbrook. I need to report a case of child intimidation and threats against a minor. Yes, I'll hold. Emma watched in confusion as Derek waited for the police response. She didn't understand, yet that her father wasn't calling to report Tyler's threats. Those would be hard to prove, and the legal system moved too slowly for Derek's taste. No, Derek was calling to report what he was about to do. Because in 30 minutes, when Tyler Morrison finished his evening workout and walked to his car in the empty gym parking lot, Derek would be waiting. And Tyler Morrison was going to have an accident. The kind that would put him in the hospital for months, the kind that would end his personal training career permanently. Derek Holbrook had spent years learning how to hurt people efficiently, and he'd never forgotten the lessons. Tyler Morrison was about to learn that threatening Derek's daughter was a mistake that carried a price higher than he could afford to pay. As for Brianna, Derek smiled coldly as he ended the call with the police. His wife thought she was clever, thought she could betray her family and threaten their daughter without consequences. She was about to discover how wrong she was. Chapter 3. The Hunt Begins. Derek's assault on Tyler Morrison was surgical in its precision. He waited in the shadows of the gym parking lot, watching his target emerge into the humid evening air. Tyler moved with the cocky swagger of a man who believed himself untouchable, his gym bag slung over one shoulder, his attention focused on his phone. Derek struck when Tyler reached his car, emerging from behind a concrete pillar like a specter. Years of combat training made the encounter brief and decisive. Tyler never saw the first blow coming, a precise strike to the solar plexus that doubled him over, gasping. The second blow, a controlled hit to the back of his neck, sent him to his knees. "You threatened my daughter," Derek said quietly, his voice carrying no emotion. "That was a mistake." Tyler tried to speak, to protest or beg, but Derek's third strike, a calculated kick to his ribs, drove the words from his lungs. The sound of bones cracking echoed off the empty parking garage walls. "You told a 15-year-old girl that you could make her disappear," Derek continued, circling his prey like a predator. "You convinced her to stop speaking out of fear." Tyler managed to look up, his face contorted with pain and dawning terror. Blood trickled from his mouth. "Wait, I can explain." Derek's boot connected with Tyler's jaw, snapping his head back. More bones broke. Derek could hear them, could feel the satisfying crunch of cartilage giving way. "I don't want explanations. I want you to understand consequences." Derek spent 10 more minutes systematically destroying Tyler Morrison's ability to ever threaten anyone again. By the time he was finished, Tyler lay unconscious in a pool of his own blood, his pretty face rearranged beyond recognition, both hands crushed, his right knee bent at an impossible angle. Derek checked his watch, 23 minutes since Tyler had left the gym. Perfect timing. He walked calmly to his truck, drove home, and showered before Brianna returned from her girls' night. When she walked through the door at 11:47 p.m., Derek was sitting in his armchair, reading a security industry magazine as if nothing had happened. "How was book club?" he asked without looking up. "Oh, you know how it is," Brianna replied, her voice artificially bright. "We talked about character development, how people aren't always who they seem to be." Derek smiled coldly. "Interesting topic. Emma went to bed early. She's been talking more today." He saw Brianna stiffen slightly. "That's good. What did she talk about?" "Nothing important." Yet, over the next few days, Derek began the systematic collection of evidence documenting his wife's betrayal. His company's resources gave him access to surveillance equipment, phone records, financial information, all legally obtained through his corporate accounts, all admissible in divorce proceedings. He discovered that Brianna and Tyler had been planning their future together for over a year. Text messages revealed their discussions about Derek's life insurance policies, their speculation about how much money Brianna would receive if he were to suffer an accident during one of his dangerous security assignments. More damning were the recordings Derek found on Tyler's cloud storage. Conversations where Brianna openly discussed her hatred for her husband, her regret at marrying such a controlling bastard, and her fantasies about starting fresh with Tyler using Derek's money. But the most revealing discovery came when Derek hacked into Tyler's social media accounts and found photos dating back 3 years. Photos of Tyler with other married women, each relationship following the same pattern. Tyler Morrison was a professional homewrecker, a predator who specialized in seducing wealthy wives and manipulating them into leaving their husbands. Brianna wasn't Tyler's first victim, and she wouldn't have been his last. Derek compiled everything into a comprehensive file. Photographs, financial records, communications, even hotel receipts showing where they'd conducted their affair. He created copies, stored them in multiple locations, and prepared for the next phase of his plan. Tyler Morrison was still in intensive care, his jaw wired shut, his hands encased in casts that would never heal properly. The police had no leads on his random mugging, and Derek had made sure there were no cameras, no witnesses, no evidence connecting him to the attack. Now it was Brianna's turn. Derek's wife thought she was mourning her injured lover while secretly planning her escape from their marriage. She didn't realize that her husband had already planned her destruction, that every move she made was being documented, that every lie she told was being recorded. Derek Holbrook had never been a forgiving man, and Brianna was about to learn that betraying him came with consequences she couldn't imagine. The hunt had begun, and Derek always caught his prey. Chapter 4. The Predator's History. Derek spent the following week diving deep into Tyler Morrison's background, using resources that most private citizens couldn't access. What he discovered painted a picture of a predator who had refined his methods over years of practice. Tyler's real name was Tyler Morrison Williams, and he'd been working his way through wealthy suburbanites for the better part of a decade. Before Brianna, there had been Patricia Knowles, a senator's wife who'd left her husband and lost custody of her children when their affair became public. Before Patricia, there was Michelle Santos, whose husband had committed suicide after discovering their relationship and the devastating financial theft that accompanied it. Derek's military contacts helped him access criminal databases that revealed a pattern. Tyler would identify married women with substantial assets, seduce them, convince them to embezzle or steal from their husbands, then disappear with the money once the relationships imploded. He was a professional, and Brianna was just his latest mark. More disturbing was what Derek learned about Tyler's methods of control. Emma wasn't the first child to be threatened into silence. Tyler had a history of intimidating the children of his targets, using fear and psychological manipulation to ensure their compliance. In 2 previous cases, the children had required therapy after their mother's relationships with Tyler ended. Derek's investigation revealed that Tyler had been slowly working on Brianna to take money from Derek's business accounts. Text messages showed Tyler encouraging her to access Derek's files, to gather information about his client list and security protocols. They hadn't just been planning to leave Derek, they'd been planning to rob him blind and potentially sell his business secrets to competitors. But Derek's most chilling discovery came when he hacked into Tyler's personal laptop, hidden in a storage unit across town. The device contained detailed psychological profiles of his targets, including Brianna. Tyler had documented her insecurities, her vulnerabilities, her fears, and had systematically exploited each one. The profile on Derek himself was particularly enlightening. Tyler had researched Derek's military service, his business practices, his reputation for ruthlessness in both combat and corporate settings. Tyler knew exactly who he was targeting, which meant his threat against Emma wasn't just cruel. It was calculated psychological warfare designed to neutralize Derek's most effective weapon, his protective instincts. Tyler Morrison had made a critical error in judgment. He'd assumed that Derek's love for his daughter would make him weak, would force him to accept the betrayal to protect Emma. He hadn't considered that Derek's protective instincts might make him infinitely more dangerous. Derek began implementing Phase 2 of his plan that evening. He created a detailed dossier on Tyler's criminal activities and anonymously sent copies to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, the IRS, and the police departments in 3 states where Tyler had operated. He included bank records, communication evidence, and testimony from Tyler's previous victims, women Derek had tracked down and convinced to come forward. Within 48 hours, Tyler Morrison would be facing federal charges for financial fraud, tax evasion, and racketeering. Even if he survived Derek's physical assault, he would spend the next decade in federal prison. But Derek wasn't finished. Tyler's network of accomplices, the gym employees who'd helped him identify targets, the financial advisors who'd helped him launder money, the private investigators who'd helped him stalk potential victims, would all face their own reckonings. Derek had always believed that betrayal was a disease that spread through networks of corruption. The only way to stop it was to cut out every infected node, to ensure that the entire system paid the price for its participation. As Derek compiled his evidence against Tyler's network, he began planning Brianna's downfall. His wife thought she was the victim of circumstances, the innocent lover of a man who'd been brutally attacked. She had no idea that Derek knew about her willing participation in Tyler's schemes, her eager assistance in planning Derek's destruction. Derek's phone buzzed with a text from Brianna, "Working late tonight." "Don't wait up." Derek smiled coldly. His wife wasn't working late. She was visiting Tyler in the hospital, probably planning their next move now that their original scheme had been disrupted. She thought she was being careful, thought she was covering her tracks. She was about to learn that Derek Holbrook never left witnesses to his enemy's crimes. Brianna had chosen her side in this war, and Derek would ensure she faced the consequences of that choice. Emma appeared in the doorway of his office, looking healthier than she had in months. Speaking the truth had lifted a weight from her shoulders, and Derek could see glimpses of the confident young woman she'd been before Tyler's threats had silenced her. "Dad, are you okay? You look intense." Derek's expression softened slightly. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just taking care of some business." "Is it about Mom and Tyler?" Derek considered his response carefully. Emma deserved honesty, but she didn't need to know the full extent of what he was planning. "Yes. And Emma, I want you to know they will never threaten you again. I promise you that." Emma nodded, seeming to understand that her father's promises were not made lightly. She'd inherited enough of Derek's instincts to recognize that whatever he was planning would be thorough and final. Derek returned to his planning with renewed focus. Tyler Morrison's criminal enterprise was about to collapse, and Brianna would fall with it. Phase 3 was about to begin. Chapter 5, The Trap Springs. Derek's anonymous tips to federal authorities bore fruit faster than he'd anticipated. Tyler Morrison's hospital room was raided by FBI agents on a Tuesday morning, his computers and phones seized as evidence in a federal financial crimes investigation. By noon, warrants had been issued for his arrest on charges of mail fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering. Derek watched the news coverage from his office, Emma beside him eating a bowl of cereal. His daughter had returned to school the previous week, her silence broken, her confidence slowly rebuilding. She seemed to understand that her father was handling the situation, that she no longer needed to carry the weight of Tyler's threats. "The hospital raid is all over social media," Emma said, scrolling through her phone. "Kids at school are saying he's some kind of criminal." "People like Tyler Morrison always are," Derek replied. "They just hide it better than most." Brianna's reaction to Tyler's arrest was predictable. She came home that evening in a state of controlled panic, her face pale, her hands shaking as she tried to appear casual. "Did you hear about that trainer from my gym?" she asked Derek over dinner. "Apparently he's been involved in some kind of financial scam. Can you believe it?" Derek studied his wife's performance with professional interest. She was good. Her surprise seemed genuine. Her concern appeared authentic. If he hadn't already known the truth, he might have believed her. "Terrible," Derek agreed. "You worked out with him, didn't you?" "A few times. He seemed so normal." Brianna's voice carried just the right note of betrayed trust. "You never really know people, do you?" "No," Derek said quietly. "You don't." That night, Derek implemented the next phase of his plan. Using his security company's resources, he began monitoring all of Brianna's communications. Phone calls, text messages, emails, social media activity. Everything was being recorded and archived. What he discovered confirmed his worst suspicions. Brianna was in contact with Tyler's lawyer, discussing plea bargains and potential testimony. She was also reaching out to her own attorney, exploring divorce options, and asking about Derek's business assets. Most damning were her conversations with Tyler's criminal associates, people Derek hadn't yet identified who were advising her to flee the country before Derek discovered her involvement in their schemes. Derek had been right. Brianna wasn't an innocent victim. She was an active participant in a criminal conspiracy designed to destroy him financially and potentially physically. Her expressions of love, her promises of fidelity, her concern for their family, all of it had been an elaborate performance. Derek made copies of every piece of evidence and prepared for the final phase of his plan. But first, he needed to protect Emma from what was coming. "Emma," he said over breakfast the next morning, "how would you feel about spending some time with your grandmother?" Emma looked up from her toast, concern flickering in her eyes. "Is everything okay?" "Everything will be okay," Derek assured her. "But your mother and I need to have some difficult conversations, and I think you'd be more comfortable away from here for a while." Emma studied her father's face, seeing something there that made her nod slowly. "How long?" "A few weeks, maybe a month, until things settle down." That afternoon, Derek drove Emma to his mother's house 3 hours away. Eleanor Holbrook was a tough woman who'd raised Derek as a single mother after his father's death in Vietnam. She asked no questions when Derek explained that Emma needed a safe place to stay while he dealt with family problems. "That girl's been through enough," Eleanor said, watching Emma unpack in the guest room. "You make sure she doesn't go through any more." "I will," Derek promised. Derek returned home that evening to find Brianna in his office, frantically searching through his filing cabinets. She froze when she saw him in the doorway, her face flushing with guilt and fear. "Looking for something?" Derek asked calmly. I was trying to find our insurance papers. For Emma's school forms." Derek nodded slowly, as if accepting her explanation. "They're in the kitchen drawer." "Well, they've always been." Brianna forced a smile and pushed past him, but Derek saw the sweat on her forehead, the tremor in her hands. She knew he was watching her, knew her time was running out. That night, Derek listened through the monitoring equipment as Brianna made a series of frantic phone calls. She was trying to access money from accounts Derek had already frozen, trying to contact associates Derek had already arrested, trying to implement escape plans Derek had already anticipated. Brianna was trapped, and she was finally beginning to realize it. Derek smiled coldly as he listened to his wife's growing desperation. Tomorrow, he would spring the final trap. Tomorrow, Brianna would learn that betraying Derek Holbrook carried consequences that extended far beyond anything she'd imagined. The hunt was nearly over, and Derek had never lost his prey. Chapter 6: The News Titans. Derek woke at 5 a.m., as he had every day for 20 years. His military training had ingrained certain habits so deeply that they'd become involuntary responses. Today, those habits would serve him well. Brianna was still sleeping, her breathing shallow and irregular, the sleep of someone whose subconscious knew danger was approaching. Derek dressed quietly and made his way to the kitchen, where he prepared coffee and reviewed the final elements of his plan. At 6:30 a.m., Derek's doorbell rang. Through the security monitor, he saw Detective Rodriguez and Agent Patricia Liu from the FBI standing on his front porch. Right on schedule. Derek answered the door with appropriate surprise. "Detective Rodriguez, what brings you here so early?" "Mr. Holbrook, we need to speak with your wife about her relationship with Tyler Morrison. We have evidence suggesting she may have been involved in his financial crimes." Derek's expression shifted to shocked concern, a performance worthy of his wife's deceptive skills. "That's impossible." Brianna barely knew him. "May we come in?" Derek led them to the living room just as Brianna appeared at the top of the stairs, wearing a silk robe and a carefully constructed expression of confusion. "Derek? What's going on?" "Mrs. Holbrook," Agent Liu said, displaying her credentials. "We need to ask you some questions about Tyler Morrison and your knowledge of his criminal activities." Derek watched his wife's face carefully as the color drained from her cheeks. She was realizing that her carefully maintained facade was about to crumble. "I don't understand," Brianna said, descending the stairs slowly. "Tyler was just a trainer at my gym. I barely knew him." Agent Liu opened a thick folder and withdrew a series of photographs. Surveillance images showing Brianna and Tyler entering and leaving hotels, restaurants, Tyler's apartment. The timestamps span nearly 2 years. "These suggest otherwise, Mrs. Holbrook." Brianna's composure cracked slightly. She glanced at Derek, perhaps hoping to see support or confusion in his expression. Instead, she saw cold calculation and realized with growing horror that he already knew everything. "I want a lawyer," Brianna said quietly. "That's your right," Detective Rodriguez replied. "But we should inform you that we have substantial evidence of your participation in financial fraud, conspiracy, and potentially conspiracy to commit murder." Derek felt a surge of satisfaction as Brianna's face went completely white. The final charge was his masterstroke. Evidence he'd planted suggesting that Brianna and Tyler had been planning Derek's death to collect his life insurance. "Murder?" Brianna's voice was barely a whisper. Agent Liu produced another set of documents, forged text messages and emails that portrayed Brianna as the driving force behind a plot to kill Derek during one of his security assignments. The evidence was circumstantial but damning, especially when combined with the genuine financial crimes Derek had documented. "Derek," Brianna turned to her husband, desperation creeping into her voice. "You know I would never." I don't know what I know anymore, Derek replied, his voice carrying just the right mix of betrayal and confusion. 2 years, Brianna? You've been lying to me for 2 years. The agent spent the next hour questioning Brianna, while Derek played the role of the devastated husband. He provided additional evidence when requested. Bank statements showing unauthorized transfers, credit card records documenting hotel stays and expensive gifts, phone records showing hundreds of calls between Brianna and Tyler. By 9 a.m., Brianna was in handcuffs, being led to a federal vehicle while news crews, tipped off by Derek's anonymous call, recorded her perp walk for the morning broadcasts. Derek stood in his doorway, watching his wife's destruction with the cold satisfaction of a man who'd achieved perfect justice. Brianna had betrayed him, threatened his daughter, and conspired to steal his life's work. Now she would face decades in federal prison, her reputation destroyed, her future obliterated. But Derek wasn't finished. After the agents left, Derek made a series of phone calls to business associates, friends, and family members. He portrayed himself as the innocent victim of an elaborate criminal conspiracy, expressing shock and betrayal at his wife's actions. By noon, the narrative was set. Derek Holbrook was the sympathetic husband who'd been deceived and betrayed by a criminal wife and her predatory lover. The local news picked up the story by evening. Derek gave a carefully scripted interview, expressing his devastation and concern for Emma, who he said was staying with relatives until this nightmare is over. Derek's phone rang constantly, friends offering support, clients expressing sympathy, law enforcement officials praising his cooperation with the investigation. He accepted each call with appropriate humility, building a public image of strength and integrity in the face of personal catastrophe. That night, Derek sat in his empty house and reviewed the complete destruction of his enemies. Tyler Morrison was facing life in federal prison, his network of criminal associates either arrested or fleeing the country. Brianna would spend the next 20 years behind bars, assuming she survived that long. Federal prison was notoriously dangerous for white-collar criminals. Derek felt no remorse, no guilt, no second thoughts. Brianna and Tyler had declared war on his family when they threatened Emma. They'd underestimated their opponent and paid the price for their arrogance. Derek poured himself a glass of expensive whiskey and toasted his victory. The hunt was nearly complete. Only one final task remained. Chapter 7. The Final Judgment. 3 weeks after Brianna's arrest, Derek received the call he'd been expecting. Tyler Morrison's lawyer wanted to arrange a meeting. Tyler was willing to provide testimony against Brianna in exchange for a reduced sentence. Derek agreed to meet at the federal courthouse, playing his role as the wronged husband seeking justice. Tyler sat in a wheelchair, his face still bandaged from Derek's assault, his hands encased in casts that would likely never heal properly. Mr. Holbrook, Tyler's voice was barely intelligible through his wired jaw. I want you to know that I never meant for things to go this far. Derek studied the broken man before him with cold interest. Tyler Morrison, once confident and predatory, had been reduced to a pathetic shell begging for mercy. Which part didn't you mean? Derek asked quietly. Threatening my daughter? Planning to steal my money? Discussing my murder with my wife? Tyler's eyes widened with genuine fear. Murder? We never talked about killing you. Derek smiled coldly. The FBI has evidence suggesting otherwise. Text messages, recorded conversations, financial transfers. Your relationship with my wife was about more than sex, Mr. Morrison. It was about eliminating me entirely. That's not true. Tyler's protest came out as a pained wheeze. Brianna talked about leaving you, taking half your assets in a divorce, but never murder. Derek leaned forward slightly. Your word against the evidence, Mr. Morrison. And given your extensive criminal history, I don't think a jury will find you particularly credible. Derek watched Tyler's remaining hope crumble as he realized the true scope of the trap. The murder conspiracy charges were Derek's invention, but they were supported by enough circumstantial evidence to be believable. Tyler's known history of violence and financial crimes made him the perfect scapegoat. What do you want? Tyler whispered. I want you to understand something, Derek said, his voice carrying the controlled menace that had once terrified enemy combatants. "You threatened my daughter. You used fear and intimidation to silence a child. That was the moment you signed your death warrant." Tyler began to shake, understanding finally that Derek Holbrook was not a victim. He was a predator who'd been toying with his prey. "The federal charges will ensure you spend the rest of your life in prison," Derek continued. "The murder conspiracy charges will put you on death row in a state that still executes criminals. But even if you somehow avoid execution, you'll spend every day in general population knowing that Derek Holbrook has connections in every major prison system in America." Derek stood to leave, but paused at the door. "My daughter is speaking again, Mr. Morrison. She's returning to school, making friends, planning her future. The fear you tried to instill in her has been replaced by the knowledge that her father protects what belongs to him." Tyler tried to speak, but Derek cut him off. "You will never threaten another child. You will never seduce another man's wife. You will never steal another dollar or destroy another family. Your criminal career is over, and your life is effectively finished." Derek left Tyler Morrison sitting in his wheelchair, broken and terrified, facing a future that held nothing but suffering and despair. That evening, Derek drove to his mother's house to collect Emma. His daughter had flourished during her stay with Eleanor, regaining the confidence and humor that Tyler's threats had stolen from her. "How did everything go with Mom?" Emma asked as they drove home. Derek considered his response carefully. "Your mother made some very bad choices, Emma. She'll be going away for a long time." Emma was quiet for several minutes. "Are you sad about it?" Derek glanced at his daughter, seeing intelligence and resilience in her green eyes. "No, sweetheart, I'm not sad. I'm relieved that you're safe, and I'm proud of you for being brave enough to tell me the truth. What about Tyler?" "Tyler Morrison will never hurt anyone again." Emma nodded, seeming to understand that some questions didn't require detailed answers. She'd inherited enough of Derek's instincts to recognize when justice had been served. As they pulled into their driveway, Derek felt a sense of completion he hadn't experienced since his military service. The mission was accomplished, the threats neutralized, the family protected. Derek Holbrook had proven once again that he never forgave betrayal, never forgot an injury, and never failed to protect what belonged to him. Brianna and Tyler had learned the price of crossing him, and they would spend the rest of their lives paying that price. Emma was safe, and that was all that mattered. Chapter 8. Scorched Earth. 6 months after Brianna's conviction, Derek received an unexpected visitor. Emma was at school, and Derek was reviewing security protocols for a new client when his doorbell rang. Through the monitor, he saw a middle-aged woman he didn't recognize, well-dressed, nervous, carrying a manila envelope. Derek opened the door cautiously. "Can I help you?" "Mr. Holbrook? My name is Patricia Knowles. I was one of Tyler Morrison's victims." Derek recognized the name from his research. The senator's wife who'd lost her children in the divorce that followed her affair with Tyler. He invited her in, curious about what had brought her to his door. Patricia sat rigidly on Derek's couch, the envelope clutched in her lap. "I've been following the news about Tyler's arrest and your wife's trial. I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For stopping him. For making sure he'll never destroy another family." Patricia's voice carried years of pain and regret. "Tyler didn't just seduce me, Mr. Holbrook. He systematically destroyed everything I cared about. My marriage, my relationship with my children, my husband's political career." Derek listened patiently as Patricia recounted her story. How Tyler had manipulated her insecurities, convinced her to embezzle campaign funds, then disappeared when the scandal broke. Her husband had committed suicide, her children refused to speak to her, and she'd spent 3 years in federal prison. "But that's not why I'm here," Patricia continued. She opened the envelope and withdrew a thick stack of documents. "Tyler kept records, Mr. Holbrook. Detailed records of every woman he targeted, every crime he committed, every life he destroyed." Derek examined the documents with growing interest. Tyler had been even more organized than Derek had realized. He maintained files on dozens of potential targets, including psychological profiles, financial information, and personal vulnerabilities. "Where did you get these?" "Tyler's lawyer contacted me last month. Apparently, Tyler is trying to negotiate a plea bargain by providing information about other criminals he worked with. These documents were part of his leverage. Derek continued reading, his expression darkening as he discovered the full scope of Tyler's network. The personal trainer had been working with divorce lawyers, private investigators, financial advisors, and even judges, an entire criminal enterprise designed to destroy marriages and steal assets. "There's something else," Patricia said quietly. "Information about your wife's involvement that didn't come out at trial." Derek looked up sharply. "What kind of information?" Patricia withdrew another document, a detailed plan written in Brianna's handwriting, outlining how she and Tyler would frame Derek for domestic violence, force him into an expensive divorce battle, and then have him killed during what would appear to be a random robbery. "She wasn't just cheating on you, Mr. Holbrook. She was planning your murder." Derek studied the document with cold fury. He'd suspected Brianna's involvement ran deeper than infidelity, but seeing her plan written in her own hand ignited a rage he hadn't felt since his combat days. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because Tyler's lawyer is using it to reduce his sentence. He's claiming Brianna was the mastermind, that she seduced him into the conspiracy. He might get as little as 10 years if the judge believes his story." Derek's hands clenched into fists. 10 years wasn't enough. Not for someone who'd planned to murder him and traumatize his daughter. Not for someone who'd worked with a criminal network to destroy innocent families. "What do you want me to do about it?" Patricia smiled grimly. "I want you to finish what you started. Tyler's network is still operating, Mr. Holbrook. Other women are being targeted. Other families are being destroyed. The justice system failed me. It's going to fail you too unless you take action." Derek spent the rest of the afternoon reviewing Patricia's documents, cross-referencing them with his own investigation files. What he discovered was a criminal enterprise far more extensive than he'd imagined. Tyler Morrison had been just one operative in a network that spanned multiple states and involved dozens of professionals. Corrupt lawyers were facilitating fraudulent divorces. Private investigators were manufacturing evidence of adultery and abuse. Financial advisors were helping criminals steal and launder money, and judges were being bribed to ensure favorable outcomes. Brianna hadn't just betrayed her family. She joined a criminal organization that specialized in destroying lives for profit. Derek made a decision that would have horrified his younger self, but felt natural now. The justice system had failed to uncover the full scope of the conspiracy. Legal remedies were insufficient for crimes this extensive and personal. Derek Holbrook was going to war. That evening, Derek began planning the complete destruction of Tyler's criminal network. Not through legal channels. Those moved too slowly and could be corrupted. Through direct action, using skills he developed in Afghanistan and resources he'd built through a security company. Every lawyer, investigator, advisor, and judge who participated in Tyler's schemes would face consequences tailored to their specific crimes. Some would be exposed publicly, their careers and reputations destroyed. Others would face financial ruin through targeted investigations and civil lawsuits. The worst offenders, those who directly threatened children or caused suicides, would face more personal justice. Derek had never been a forgiving man, and the scope of this conspiracy demanded responses that extended far beyond conventional justice. Emma was safe, but hundreds of other children and families were still at risk. Derek Holbrook was going to eliminate that risk permanently, regardless of what it cost him personally. The war was about to begin. Chapter 9: Victory and Vengeance. 2 years later, Derek stood in the cemetery where Brianna was buried, watching as workers removed her headstone. She died in federal prison, officially a suicide, though Derek suspected the inmates he'd paid to make her life unbearable had finally pushed her over the edge. Emma stood beside him, now 17 and college-bound, her confidence fully restored. She'd chosen not to attend her mother's funeral, but she'd agreed to witness the removal of the headstone that bore Brianna's false claims of being a loving mother and devoted wife. "Are you sure about this, Dad?" Emma asked, watching as the stone was loaded onto a truck. "Your mother forfeited the right to those titles when she chose to betray our family," Derek replied. "History should remember her for what she really was." The new headstone Derek had commissioned bore only Brianna's name and dates of birth and death. No false sentiments, no lies about love or devotion. Just the bare facts of a life that had ended in disgrace and imprisonment. Derek's campaign against Tyler's criminal network had been ruthlessly effective. Over 18 months, he'd systematically destroyed every participant in the conspiracy. Corrupt lawyers had been disbarred and imprisoned. Private investigators had lost their licenses and faced criminal charges. Financial advisors had been prosecuted for fraud and money laundering. The judges who'd accepted bribes had been the most satisfying targets. Derek had gathered evidence of their corruption and delivered it to federal prosecutors, the media, and their political opponents simultaneously. All three had been impeached, convicted, and sentenced to decades in federal prison. Tyler Morrison himself had died in protective custody 6 months into his sentence. Officially, it was another suicide, though the inmates Derek had contacted ensured Tyler's final months were filled with the same fear and helplessness he'd inflicted on his victims. Derek felt no remorse for any of it. These people had built careers on destroying families and traumatizing children. They'd forfeited their rights to mercy or compassion through their choices. What about the others? Emma asked as they walked back to Derek's truck. The other families Tyler hurt. Derek smiled with genuine warmth. One of the few expressions of positive emotion he'd shown since discovering Brianna's betrayal. Patricia Knowles is rebuilding her relationship with her children. The Morrison Foundation is providing counseling and financial support to all of Tyler's victims. Justice has been served. Derek had established the foundation using money seized from Tyler's criminal network, ensuring that the profits from their crimes would be used to help their victims recover. It was poetic justice that appealed to Derek's sense of symmetry. Emma nodded, satisfied with her father's explanation. She'd inherited enough of Derek's moral certainty to understand that some actions, however extreme, were necessary to protect the innocent. As they drove home, Derek reflected on the lessons he'd learned and taught. Emma now understood that trust, once broken, could never be repaired. That betrayal demanded consequences. That family loyalty was absolute, and those who violated it would face destruction. Derek had never been a forgiving man, and the events of the past 2 years had only reinforced his belief that mercy was a luxury he couldn't afford. Brianna had chosen to betray their family, and she'd paid the ultimate price. Tyler had chosen to threaten children, and he'd died in terror and pain. Their criminal associates had chosen to profit from destroying lives, and they'd lost everything they'd worked to build. "Dad," Emma said as they pulled into their driveway, "I know this has been hard on you. Losing Mom, dealing with all the legal stuff, protecting me from everything." Derek turned to study his daughter's face, seeing intelligence and strength that reminded him of himself at her age. "I want you to know that I'm proud to be your daughter. I'm proud that you never gave up, never backed down, never let them win." Derek felt something warm stir in his chest, pride, perhaps, or satisfaction. Emma had emerged from their ordeal stronger and wiser, understanding the world's harsh realities but not broken by them. "You're going to be fine, Emma. You've learned that actions have consequences, that trust must be earned, and that family protects family above all else." Emma smiled, not the innocent expression of childhood, but the knowing look of someone who understood that the world was dangerous and that survival required strength, vigilance, and a willingness to fight for what mattered. Derek Holbrook had won his war completely. His enemies were dead or destroyed, his daughter was safe and strong, and his reputation remained intact. He'd proven once again that betraying him carried a price higher than anyone could afford to pay. As they entered their house, cleansed now of Brianna's presence and Tyler's influence, Derek felt the satisfaction of a mission completed successfully. Emma was home, the threats were eliminated, and the family honor was restored. Derek Holbrook had never been a forgiving man, and he never would be. Some lessons were too important to forget, and some principles were too valuable to compromise. Justice had been served, vengeance had been achieved, and the Holbrook family would continue, stronger, wiser, and absolutely ruthless in protecting what belonged to them. The war was over, and Derek had won. And there you have it, Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there. Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. Chapter 1, The Extraction. Warren McKay had never been the charitable type, but when a mobile blood drive rolled into Apex Therapeutics parking lot on a gray Tuesday morning, his boss Vernon McKenzie made it clear that participation wasn't optional. Vernon stood at the entrance to the medical trailer, clipboard in hand, checking off names like a prison warden conducting roll call. "McKay, you're up at 11:30, Vernon announced, not looking up from his list. "Try not to pass out. We need you functional for the Grayson presentation." Warren nodded, suppressing the urge to remind Vernon that he'd carried the last 3 presentations while Vernon took credit during board meetings. At 34, Warren had learned to pick his battles. He was a senior research analyst at Apex, a pharmaceutical consulting firm that advised biotech companies on drug development strategies. The work was intellectually demanding, but politically exhausting, especially under Vernon's management. The morning crawled by. Warren reviewed data sets for a gene therapy client, his mind wandering to his weekend plans with his girlfriend Andrea Atwood. They'd been dating for 8 months, long enough that her parents had started asking pointed questions about his intentions. Andrea was a pediatric nurse at Children's Memorial, compassionate and grounded in ways that balanced Warren's analytical nature. She'd encouraged him to donate blood. "It takes 30 minutes and saves lives," she'd said over breakfast that morning, her dark eyes earnest. "Plus, they screen for everything. You'll get a free mini physical." At 11:25, Warren locked his computer and headed to the trailer. Inside, the smell of antiseptic mixed with the metallic tang of blood. 3 donation stations lined the narrow space, separated by thin curtains. A young technician with a blonde ponytail and a name tag reading Shelby Le gestured him to the middle station. "First time donating?" Shelby asked, prepping her equipment with practiced efficiency. "Yeah, how can you tell?" "You're gripping the armrest like it's a ledge." She smiled. "Relax. This is the easy part." Shelby ran through the standard questions: recent travel, medications, sexual history. Warren answered honestly, watching as she tied the tourniquet around his bicep and swabbed the crook of his elbow with iodine. The needle pinch was sharp but brief. "You're doing great," Shelby said. "Now just squeeze that ball every few seconds and we'll be done in no time." Warren watched his blood flow through the tube into the collection bag, dark and viscous. Shelby busied herself with labels and paperwork. 3 minutes passed, then 4. Shelby glanced at the collection bag, then at the tube. Her brow furrowed. "Something wrong?" Warren asked. "No, just hold on." She adjusted the tube, checked the needle placement. Her expression shifted from puzzlement to concern. The blood in the tube had started to separate, red cells sinking while the plasma above took on an unusual amber tint with faint iridescent streaks, like oil on water. Shelby's hands moved faster now, pulling out her phone. "Don't move," she said, her voice carefully controlled. "Stay very calm, Mr. McKay. What's happening? Just please don't move." She stepped through the curtain, and Warren heard urgent whispers. His pulse quickened, which only made the blood flow faster. Through the gap in the curtain, he saw Shelby speaking rapidly to an older woman in a white coat, the supervising physician, Dr. Rachel Fry, according to her ID badge. Dr. Fry's eyes widened as Shelby showed her something on her phone. Both women approached Warren's station, Dr. Fry's face professionally neutral, but her movements tense. "Mr. McKay, I'm Dr. Fry. I need you to remain still while we finish the draw." She examined the collection bag, lifting it to the fluorescent light. The iridescence was more pronounced now, swirling patterns that seemed almost luminescent. "Shelby, call Coordinator Barnett. Use my personal line. Tell him we have a Priority Alpha situation." "Priority Alpha?" Warren's throat went dry. "That sounds serious. What's wrong with my blood?" "We're not sure yet," Dr. Fry said, though her expression suggested otherwise. "Have you ever been told you have any blood disorders?" Hemophilia? Sickle cell? Anything unusual? No. Clean bill of health my whole life. Rarely even get colds. Dr. Fry exchanged a look with Shelby. Who were your parents, Mr. McKay? Are they living? The question struck Warren like a physical blow. Why does that matter? Please, just answer. My mother was Diana McKay. She died when I was 3. Car accident. My father, Paul McKay, died 7 years ago. Stroke. Warren's voice hardened. Now tell me what's going on. Before Dr. Fry could respond, the trailer door opened. 2 people entered. A tall black man in an expensive charcoal suit and a striking woman with steel gray hair, also formally dressed. They didn't introduce themselves. The man carried a metal briefcase marked with a biohazard symbol and a logo Warren didn't recognize. A double helix intertwined with what looked like crown. Dr. Fry, the man said, his voice smooth and authoritative. Secure the sample and clear the trailer. Now, Dr. Fry moved quickly, closing off Warren's station with additional curtains. Shelby ushered the other 2 donors out with apologies about equipment malfunction. Within 90 seconds, Warren was alone with the 3 strangers. The man opened his briefcase and removed a handheld scanner, passing it over Warren's blood bag. It emitted a series of rapid beeps, and a small screen displayed data Warren couldn't decipher. The man's composed demeanor cracked. His hand trembled as he lowered the scanner. Jesus Christ, he whispered. He looked at the woman. Lori, it's confirmed. Marker sequence 774 with the crown variant. Purity level off the charts. Lori Stanton. Warren caught her name from the ID badge she now clipped to her jacket, went pale. She pulled out her phone and typed rapidly. Mr. McKay, the man said, turning to face him fully. My name is Sergio Barnett. I'm a special coordinator with the National Institute of Genetic Medicine. This is Lori Stanton, Chief of Biosecurity. What I'm about to tell you is classified information subject to federal law. Classified. Warren's mind raced. I came here to donate blood for car accident victims, not get recruited into some spy thriller. Your blood, Sergio continued, ignoring the sarcasm, contains genetic markers that should not exist in the general population. Markers associated with a research project that was shut down 33 years ago. Warren's birth year. The coincidence wasn't lost on him. What kind of research project? Sergio hesitated, weighing his words. In the 1980s, a private genetics laboratory called Helix Crown conducted experimental gene therapies. Highly classified work, theoretically aimed at treating hereditary diseases. The project was terminated when ethical violations came to light. What kind of violations? Human experimentation without consent. Genetic modification of embryonic cells. Creation of heritable changes that would pass to subsequent generations. Sergio's jaw tightened. The lab was shut down, its directors prosecuted, all samples supposedly destroyed. But your blood suggests otherwise. The implications crashed over Warren like a wave. You're saying I'm some kind of lab creation? That my parents were likely participants, willing or unwilling, in Helix Crown's program? Lori interjected. Her tone was clinical, detached. The markers in your blood are unique to their methodology, which means at least one of your parents underwent their procedures. Warren yanked his arm away from the needle, ignoring Dr. Fry's protest. Blood trickled from the puncture site as he stood, backing toward the trailer exit. This is insane. My parents were normal people. My dad was an accountant. My mom was a school teacher. Their professions don't matter, Sergio said. What matters is that you exist. And if you exist, others might as well. We need you to come with us, Mr. McKay. For testing. For your own protection. Protection from what? From people who would kill to get their hands on what's in your veins. Warren's phone buzzed. A text from Andrea. Hope the donation went well. Dinner at Luigi's tonight? 7 p.m.? Normal life, just beyond the trailer walls. Vernon would be wondering where he was. The Grayson presentation needed final touches. Andrea was waiting. Everything ordinary and comprehensible. I'm not going anywhere, Warren said. Not until you tell me everything. Starting with what these genetic markers actually do. Sergio and Lori exchanged glances. Lori spoke first. Enhanced cellular regeneration. extreme disease resistance, potentially extended lifespan. Helix Crown was trying to create what they called optimized humans. The ethical nightmare is obvious, and the results were unstable, Sergio added. Most subjects died. Those who survived experienced complications, psychological breaks, organ failure. The program was a catastrophe. But I'm fine, Warren said. I've been fine my whole life. Which makes you an anomaly, Lori said. A successful result in a sea of failures. Do you understand how valuable that makes you? How many organizations, governments, corporations, black market biolabs would pay fortunes to study your genetic code? Warren's phone buzzed again. Another text from Andrea. You okay? You're usually quick to respond. He looked at the blood bag, at his own modified cells suspended in plasma, carrying secrets his parents had taken to their graves. He thought of his father's stroke, sudden and fatal at 59. His mother's car accident. The details always vague in family stories. Were their deaths really accidents? Warren asked quietly. Sergio's silence was answer enough. We can protect you, Lori said, but you need to cooperate. Come to our facility. Let's run tests. Help us determine if there are others like you. And if I refuse, then you become a target, Sergio said bluntly. Word of this discovery will spread. It's already spreading. Our protocols require reporting. Within hours, interested parties will know. Some will want to study you. Others will want to weaponize what you represent. A few will simply want you eliminated to bury Helix Crown's legacy permanently. Warren's analytical mind kicked into gear, processing probabilities and options. These people could be lying, part of some elaborate scam. But the fear in Dr. Fry's eyes was real. The shock in Sergio's reaction was genuine, and the iridescent shimmer in his blood bag was undeniable. I need 24 hours, Warren said, to put my affairs in order. Tell people I'm taking a business trip. Impossible, Lori said. Every hour increases the risk. Then make it possible, Warren shot back. Because if you try to force me, I'll make this as difficult as I can. I'll contact lawyers, media. I'll scream about illegal detention until your classified project becomes front-page news. Sergio studied Warren with newfound respect. You're not panicking. I'm terrified, Warren admitted. But I'm also not stupid. You need my cooperation. That gives me leverage. After a tense silence, Sergio nodded. 12 hours. We'll place you in protective surveillance. Pack essentials only. Tell your girlfriend you're going on a work trip. Something urgent but routine. Tell your boss the same. No details. No hints. Protective surveillance means people following me. Watching over you, Lori corrected. You won't see them, but they'll be there. Warren held out his hand. My blood sample. I want a portion of it. Something I can have independently tested. That's not protocol, Lori said. It's my blood, my genetic code, my leverage. Warren kept his hand extended. Give me one vial. Sealed. Or I walk out right now and take my chances. Sergio's lips twitched in something almost like a smile. He filled a small vial from the collection bag and sealed it with official tape. You're smarter than most, Mr. McKay. Let's hope that helps you survive what's coming. Warren pocketed the vial and walked out of the trailer into the parking lot. Autumn sunlight felt surreal after the fluorescent gloom. He texted Andrea back. All good. Luigi's at 7 sounds perfect. His hands were steady. His breathing was controlled. But inside, Warren McKay felt the foundations of his reality crumbling. He had 12 hours to prepare for a life he didn't ask for and didn't understand. And somewhere in the shadows, people were already moving toward him. Chapter 2, The Inheritance. Warren drove home on autopilot, his mind dissecting the trailer encounter with surgical precision. 12 hours. He needed to think several moves ahead, anticipate threats he couldn't yet name. His apartment building loomed ahead, a modest complex in a quiet neighborhood where nothing interesting ever happened. Until today, he parked in his assigned spot and sat for a moment, scanning the area. A gray sedan 3 rows over, engine running, 2 occupants barely visible through tinted windows. Protective surveillance. He considered waving, but decided against antagonizing his watchers. Inside his apartment, Warren locked the door and drew the blinds. He retrieved the blood vial from his pocket, holding it to the light. The iridescent shimmer was fainter now, but still visible, like captured aurora borealis. He photographed it from multiple angles, then secured it in a fireproof safe he kept for important documents. Next, he opened his laptop and began researching Helix Crown. The results were disappointingly sparse. A few academic papers from the mid-1980s about experimental gene therapy. Then nothing. Dead links. Scrubbed databases. The kind of thorough erasure that required serious resources. But Warren was good at finding patterns in missing data. He searched for the researchers mentioned in those old papers. Most led nowhere. But one name, Dr. Benjamin Sweeney, connected to an obituary from 1992. Died unexpectedly at age 47. No cause given. Survived by his wife, Catherine, and daughter. Catherine Sellers, according to marriage records. Still alive, living in Portland. Warren copied her address. If Sergio and Lori wanted to bury the past, Warren needed to understand it first. Knowledge was leverage, and he was operating at a severe information disadvantage. His phone rang. Andrea. Hey, he answered, forcing casualness into his voice. You sound weird. What happened at the blood drive? Warren closed his eyes. Andrea's intuition was uncomfortably sharp. Weird day at work. Vernon's being Vernon. Want to cancel tonight? We could just order in, watch something mindless. The offer was tempting, but sitting in his apartment, counting down the hours felt unbearable. No, Luigi's is perfect. I need the distraction. 7 o'clock. I'll be there. Warren, you're sure you're okay? Just tired. See you soon. After hanging up, Warren packed a duffel bag, clothes for a week, toiletries, laptop, chargers, the vial from his safe. He added his father's watch, a leather-banded heirloom that was one of his few tangible connections to Paul McKay. He strapped it on his wrist, feeling the familiar weight. 5:47 p.m. Time to face Vernon. Warren called his boss, who answered on the fourth ring with his characteristic impatience. McKay, where the hell have you been? The Grayson people are waiting for those revisions. I sent them 2 hours ago. Warren lied smoothly. Check your spam folder. Vernon, I need to take emergency leave. Family situation. I'll be out for at least a week. A week? We have a Mercer pitch on Friday. Jorge can handle it. He knows the material. Jorge Hooper was the other senior analyst, competent if uninspired. Vernon's silence was calculating. This better not be about job hunting. If you're interviewing elsewhere, it's family, Warren repeated. I'll have limited availability, but can consult remotely if absolutely critical. Fine, but this conversation isn't over. Warren ended the call, feeling a grim satisfaction. Vernon's suspicions would work in his favor. A plausible explanation for sudden absence that had nothing to do with classified genetics programs. 6:15 p.m. He had time before meeting Andrea. Warren opened a secure email account he'd set up years ago for sensitive work communications and composed a message to himself. If you're reading this, something has happened to me. In my apartment safe, code 041787, you'll find evidence related to Helix Crown genetics program. Blood sample with unique markers. Research Sergio Barnett and Lori Stanton, National Institute of Genetic Medicine. My parents may have been experimental subjects. Trust no one in authority. Warren. He scheduled the email to send in 48 hours unless he logged in to cancel it. A dead man's switch, crude but effective. 6:45 p.m. Warren locked his apartment and drove to Luigi's, checking his mirrors compulsively. The gray sedan followed at a discreet distance. At least his protection detail was competent. Luigi's was a small Italian place with checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles. Aggressively romantic in a way that usually made Warren uncomfortable. But Andrea loved it, and tonight its normalcy felt like medicine. She was already seated, wearing a blue dress that brought out her eyes. She smiled as Warren approached, but the smile flickered when she saw his expression. Okay, spill, she said as he sat. And don't tell me it's just work. Warren had prepared lies, excuses, misdirections. But looking at Andrea across the table, he found himself telling a version of the truth. The blood donation flagged something unusual, medical anomaly. They want me to go to a specialist facility for testing. Andrea's nursing instincts activated immediately. What kind of anomaly? Blood disorder? Are you sick? They don't think so. Something genetic. Probably nothing, but they want to be thorough. When? Tomorrow morning. Could be a week of tests. Andrea reached across the table, taking his hand. Warren, this is serious. Do you want me to come with you? I can take personal days. The offer touched him more than he expected. No, it's just observation and lab work. Boring medical stuff. But I wanted you to know, in case I'm hard to reach. You're scared, she said quietly. Wouldn't you be? Terrified. But you're one of the toughest people I know. If something's wrong, you'll handle it. Warren wished he shared her confidence. They ordered food neither of them tasted, making forced conversation about Andrea's shift at the hospital, about plans for when he returned. Normal couple talk that felt increasingly surreal. As they finished dessert, Andrea's expression turned serious. There's something I need to tell you. I was going to wait, but with everything happening, Warren's stomach tightened. What? My dad wants to meet you. Officially. Sunday dinner at their place. She smiled nervously. He's very old-fashioned about these things. Meeting the boyfriend, grilling him about intentions. Any other week, Warren would have panicked. Tonight, the mundane anxiety was almost comforting. Sunday might not work with the medical stuff. Rain check. Of course. Just. Warren, this is going somewhere, right? Us. He looked at her, this good, decent woman who'd somehow decided he was worth her time. Yeah, he said. Definitely somewhere. They left Luigi's at 9:30. Warren walked Andrea to her car, hyper-aware of the watchers in the shadows. He kissed her goodbye, trying to memorize the moment. Call me when you can, Andrea said. Even just to say you're okay. I will. He watched her drive away, then returned to his car. The gray sedan was gone, replaced by a dark SUV with government plates. The surveillance team was getting less subtle. Warren considered confronting them, but decided against it. Instead, he drove to the 24-hour copy shop on Marshall Street. Using cash and a fake name, he made copies of everything in his research file. The photos of his blood, the Helix Crown information, the Sergio Barnett contact details. He mailed one set to a P.O. box he kept for spam subscriptions and another to Catherine Sellers in Portland with a note. Your husband worked for Helix Crown. So did my parents. We need to talk. Warren McKay. By the time Warren returned home, it was past 11. He sat in his apartment, duffel bag packed, watching the clock wind toward his deadline. At 11:47, his phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. McKay. Sergio Barnett's voice tense. We need to move now. There's been a development. It hasn't been 12 hours. The timeline's changed. Someone leaked your information to unauthorized parties. You're not safe at your location. How do I know you're not the threat? Because if we wanted you dead or disappeared, it would have happened already. Look out your window. Third-floor apartment across the street. Warren moved to the window, peering through a gap in blinds. In the building opposite, a figure stood silhouetted in a window, holding what looked like a rifle with a long-range scope. That's not my team, Sergio said. That's a cleanup crew. If you stay there, you'll be dead in 5 minutes. There's a white van pulling up to your building right now. Get in it. Warren grabbed his duffel bag and ran. Chapter 3. The Descent. The stairwell lights flickered as Warren descended, his footsteps echoing off concrete walls. Behind him, he heard his apartment door splinter. The cleanup crew wasn't bothering with subtlety. He burst through the ground floor exit into the parking lot just as the white van screeched to a halt. The side door flew open. Sergio Barnett reached out. Move! Warren dove in, and the van peeled out before the door fully closed. He rolled onto his back, breathing hard, as Lori Stanton leaned over him with a scanner. Stay still, she ordered, running the device over his chest and limbs. It beeped erratically. No trackers. Good. Who were those people? Warren demanded. Remains to be seen, Sergio said for the passenger seat. The driver, a muscular woman with short-cropped hair, navigated through residential streets with professional precision. But they moved fast. Too fast. Someone with serious reach knew about you within hours. You said your protocols required reporting. Maybe it's your own people. Lori's expression darkened. That's what concerns us. The leak came from inside NIGM. Only 7 people had access to your file. One of them sold you out. The van merged onto the highway, heading east. Warren pulled himself into his seat, his mind racing. Where are we going? Safe house. 30 miles from here. Remote location. Off-grid communications. Defensible perimeter. Sergio turned to face him. Once we're secure, we'll begin testing. Figure out exactly what makes you different. And find out who wants me dead, Warren added. That too. They drove in tense silence for 20 minutes. Warren watched the city lights fade into rural darkness. The driver, Sergio, introduced her as Constance McDonald, former Special Forces, took an unmarked exit onto a narrow road cutting through dense forest. We have a tail, Constance announced, checking her mirrors. Sergio swore. How close? Half-mile back. Black sedan. They're maintaining distance. Lose them. Constance accelerated, killing the van's headlights and navigating by moonlight and GPS. The road twisted through the trees, barely wide enough for 2 vehicles. Behind them, the sedan's headlights appeared, then disappeared around curves. They're good, Constance muttered. Professional pursuit driving. Lori was on her phone, speaking rapidly in coded language. Backup is 12 minutes out. We need to reach the safe house. The road forked ahead. Constance took the left branch without slowing, the van's suspension groaning as they hit a pothole. The sedan stayed with them. Then the night exploded with gunfire. Bullets punched through the van's rear panel, sparking off metal. Warren hit the floor as Sergio returned fire through a gun port in the rear door. The sedan swerved, but maintained pursuit. They're trying to disable us, not kill, Sergio shouted. They want McKay alive. That's supposed to be reassuring? Warren shouted back. Constance took another sharp turn, this one onto a barely visible dirt track. The van bounced violently over roots and rocks. The sedan tried to follow, but its lower clearance betrayed it. Warren heard the screech of metal on stone. Then the sedan fell back. Safe house, 2 minutes, Constance reported. They emerged into a clearing. A prefabricated structure sat in the center, floodlights illuminating a perimeter fence topped with razor wire. Constance drove straight through an opening gate, which closed automatically behind them. Armed guards emerged from the building, 4 of them carrying rifles, wearing tactical gear. Sergio jumped out and conferred with their leader, a grizzled man in his 50s. Kirk Blankenship, head of security, Sergio told Warren. He'll keep you alive. Kirk nodded curtly. Inside. Now. The safe house interior was Spartan, concrete floors, reinforced walls, minimal furniture. Kirk directed Warren to a back room equipped with a bed, desk, and bathroom. No windows. A single door with electronic locks. You'll stay here until we clear the threat, Kirk said. Don't try to leave. For your own protection. This looks suspiciously like a prison cell, Warren observed. It's a cage, Kirk agreed, but one designed to keep predators out, not you in. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start tests. After Kirk left, Warren heard the electronic lock engage. He was alone. He unpacked his duffel, finding everything intact, including the blood vial. He set up his laptop, but found no internet connection. Isolated network only. His phone had 1 bar of signal, though he suspected it was monitored. No messages from Andrea. It was past midnight now. She'd be asleep, unaware that Warren's life had turned into a paranoid thriller. Warren lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. His mind kept circling back to his parents. Paul and Diana McKay. Had they known what Helix Crown did to them? Were they volunteers or victims? Did they realize they were passing modified genes to their son? Paul had been a quiet man, methodical and reserved. He rarely spoke about Diana, whose death when Warren was 3 left a hole Warren barely remembered. Paul raised him alone, never remarrying, pouring his energy into giving Warren a stable, normal life. Had that been guilt? Penance for participating in something monstrous? Warren pulled out his phone and opened the photo album he rarely looked at, images of Paul from happier times. His father at Warren's high school graduation, at Warren's college acceptance celebration. Always proud, always present, but always with a shadow of sadness in his eyes. In one photo, Paul wore a medical bracelet. Warren zoomed in. The engraving was barely visible. Helix participant 774. The marker sequence Sergio had mentioned. Warren's hand shook. His father had known, had lived with that knowledge for decades, and died without ever telling his son the truth. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. The lock disengaged, and Lori entered carrying a medical kit. "Can't sleep either?" she asked. "Would you?" "Fair point." She sat in the room's single chair. "I need to draw blood. More comprehensive analysis than the quick field test." Warren extended his arm. As Lori worked, he studied her, probably mid-40s, competent and controlled, but with tension around her eyes. "How long have you known about Helix Crown?" Warren asked. 6 years. I was brought onto NIGM's historical genetics project to help track down residual subjects. We found 14 over the years. You're the 15th. What happened to the others? Lori's pause told him everything. 3 are in protective custody. 4 died of complications before we located them. The rest were eliminated by interested parties. Eliminated, Warren repeated flatly. "You mean murdered?" "Yes. Why keep me alive then? Why not just study my corpse?" "Because living subjects provide ongoing data, and because you're unique, stable expression of the modifications with no apparent side effects. The others all manifested problems, autoimmune disorders, neurological issues. You're a successful result, which makes you invaluable for understanding why Helix Crown usually failed." She labeled the blood vials with efficient movements. "You asked earlier about your parents' deaths. We've reviewed the records. Your mother's car accident showed signs of tampering, brake line fluid drained. Your father's stroke occurred 2 weeks after he attempted to contact a journalist about Helix Crown. The revelation was a punch to the gut. They were murdered. Most likely, someone didn't want their story told. That same someone probably wants you silenced now. Then why tell me? Why not just keep me in the dark? Use me as a lab rat?" Lori met his eyes. "Because you deserve the truth. And because we need you to cooperate, which requires trust. I'm not going to lie to you, Warren. Your life is in danger, but we're your best chance at survival. What about catching whoever killed my parents? That's complicated. The original Helix Crown directors are mostly dead. The facility was demolished. But the money behind it, the real power, that's still out there. Still interested in the technology. Still willing to kill for it. Names, Warren demanded. "Give me names. We don't have definitive proof, but our investigation points to a consortium of biotech investors. The primary suspect is Raymond White, billionaire founder of Gene Future Corporation. He was never officially connected to Helix Crown, but financial records show he funneled money through shell companies to the lab." Warren committed the name to memory. Raymond White. Why not arrest him? Insufficient evidence. White's lawyers bury everything. But if we could prove he's still actively hunting Helix subjects, we'd have grounds for prosecution. Lori stood. "That's where you come in. You're bait, Warren. Live bait to draw out the people who murdered your parents. You want me to be a target? You already are. We're just making it strategic." After Lori left, Warren pulled up his laptop and searched for Raymond White. The results were extensive: Forbes profiles, charitable foundation work, interviews about genetic medicine's future. White was 71, silver-haired and distinguished, with a smile that never reached his eyes. In one photo from a medical conference, White stood next to a younger man identified as his head of research, Dr. Sean Goff. Warren clicked through to Goff's profile. PhD in genetic engineering from MIT. Published extensively on gene therapy. No obvious connection to Helix Crown. But when Warren dug deeper into Goff's publication history, he found a gap. 1989 to 1993, nothing published. The Helix Crown operational years. Warren was about to investigate further when his laptop screen went black. Text appeared. "Stop digging. They're watching. Delete your search history now." Warren's heart hammered. He obeyed, clearing his browser cache and history. The text vanished, replaced by his normal desktop. Someone had accessed his isolated network. Someone inside the safe house. Kirk Blankenship's words echoed. "It's a cage designed to keep predators out." But what if the predator was already inside? Warren locked his door from the inside, a flimsy precaution, and wedged the chair into the handle. He positioned himself where he could see both the door and the vent in the ceiling, the blood vial clutched in one hand and his phone in the other. The night stretched ahead, full of invisible threats. At 3:47 a.m., Warren heard footsteps in the corridor. They stopped outside his door. The lock began to disengage. Warren prepared to fight. Chapter 4: The Defector. The door opened to reveal not an assassin, but Dr. Rachel Fry from the blood drive, now wearing jeans and a hoodie instead of her white coat. She pressed a finger to her lips, then pointed to the ceiling corner where a tiny camera lens glinted in the dim light. Warren understood. He stood casually, as if greeting an expected visitor. "Dr. Fry, midnight house call." Something like that. She entered, closing the door softly. Her eyes were red-rimmed from exhaustion or tears. "We need to talk. Somewhere without ears." She pulled out a small device that emitted a soft static hiss, a signal jammer. The camera's red recording light flickered and died. "You have 3 minutes before security notices the camera malfunction," Rachel said urgently. "Listen carefully. Sergio Barnett is not who he claims to be." Warren's muscles tensed. "Explain." "NIGM is real, and there was a Helix Crown investigation. But Sergio isn't leading it, he's sabotaging it. He's been feeding information to Raymond White for at least 2 years. The cleanup crew that attacked your apartment, they weren't trying to kill you. They were supposed to extract you before NIGM's real agents arrived. Why tell me this? Because I made the mistake of trusting Sergio with your blood data. He immediately contacted White. I saw the encrypted message before he could delete it. Once I realized what I'd done." Her voice cracked. "Your parents died because people like me followed orders without asking questions. I won't make that mistake again. If Sergio's compromised, what about Lori? Kirk? Are they all working for White? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. But you can't trust anyone here." Rachel pulled out a key card. "Service entrance, east side of the building. This will get you through the first 2 security doors. After that, you're on your own. And then what? Run blindly into the woods. I have a car parked a quarter-mile down the access road. Gray Honda, keys under the driver's mat. GPS programmed to a location in Portland. Catherine Sellers, wife of Dr. Benjamin Sweeney. She'll have answers Sergio doesn't want you to find." The name sent a jolt through Warren. He'd mailed her a letter hours ago. What do you know about Catherine?" "Because I've been doing what you should be doing, investigating Helix Crown independently. Catherine's husband didn't just work for Helix. He tried to expose it, and they killed him for it. She's been in hiding for 30 years, but she'll talk to you. You're living proof her husband died trying to protect." A loud beep interrupted them. Rachel's jammer battery was dying. "Go now," she whispered. "Once that camera resets, they'll know we talked. Come with me." "I can't. My daughter. Sergio knows where she lives. He's already threatened her to keep me compliant. I'm trapped, Warren. But you're not. Use that." She pressed the key card into his hand, reactivated her jammer for a final burst, and slipped out. Warren waited 30 seconds, then grabbed his duffel bag and eased into the corridor. The safe house was laid out like a bunker, long hallways with numbered rooms branching off a central hub. Dim emergency lighting cast everything in sickly green. Warren moved toward where he estimated east would be, guided by a mental map he'd been unconsciously constructing since arrival. Voices ahead. He ducked into an unlocked supply closet as Kirk Blankenship and another guard walked past. "Camera in room 7 is down." Fry was in there. "Want to check on the asset?" "Not yet. Get 5 minutes. If it's just a malfunction, no need to spook McKay." Their footsteps faded. Warren emerged, his heart hammering. Room 7, his room. The clock was ticking. The east corridor ended at a heavy door marked maintenance only. Warren swiped Rachel's key card. The lock disengaged with a soft click. Beyond was a concrete stairwell descending into darkness. He took the stairs 2 at a time, emerging into a basement filled with HVAC equipment and utility pipes. Another security door, another key card swipe. This one led outside into cold night air. The woods pressed close around the safe house perimeter. Floodlights swept in programmed patterns, leaving gaps of darkness. Warren timed his movement, sprinting during a blind spot and diving into the tree line as the lights swept back. Branches clawed at his face as he ran. Behind him, alarms began to wail. They discovered his escape. Shouts echoed in the night. Flashlight beams probed the forest. Warren ran harder, trusting Rachel's directions. A quarter mile felt infinite in pitch darkness with pursuers closing in. His lungs burned. His legs screamed. Then he saw it. A gray Honda, exactly where promised. He dove for the driver's side, found the keys, cranked the engine. Headlights appeared in his rearview mirror as the Honda fishtailed onto the dirt road. Gunfire, not aimed to kill, but to disable. A bullet shattered the rear windshield. Warren kept his foot on the accelerator, the car bucking over ruts and rocks. The dirt road met pavement. Warren took the turn at 60 miles per hour, the Honda's tires shrieking. The pursuing vehicle, Kirk's tactical SUV, was faster and better equipped. It gained steadily. Warren's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Answer it. Sergio's voice came through the car's Bluetooth. You're making a serious mistake. Funny, Dr. Fry said the same thing about trusting you. Rachel's daughter is 6 years old. Her name is Allison. She likes ballet and princess movies. By running, you've endangered that child. Ice flooded Warren's veins. You're threatening a 6-year-old? I'm explaining consequences. Come back now, and Allison stays safe. Keep running, and I can't protect her from my employers. Raymond White, you mean? A pause. So Rachel told you. Unfortunate. That complicates things. It simplifies them. I know you're dirty. I know White murdered my parents. I know you're trying to deliver me to him. It's not that simple. White doesn't want you dead. He wants your genetic code. He's offering $50 million for your voluntary cooperation. Full sequencing, tissue samples, then freedom and financial security for life. And I should believe that because the alternative is worse. You can't run forever, Warren. White has resources I can't match. But if you come in voluntarily, I can negotiate terms. Keep you alive. Maybe even get justice for your parents. The SUV was 2 car lengths behind now, pulling alongside. Warren saw Kirk in the driver's seat, a gun in one hand. Last chance, Sergio said. Pull over. Warren made a decision. He slammed on the brakes. The Honda screeched to a halt. Kirk's SUV shot past, unable to stop in time. Warren threw the Honda into reverse, backed up 30 yards, then took a hard turn onto a side road barely visible in the darkness. The SUV tried to follow, but Warren had a precious few seconds lead. He killed his headlights, navigating by moonlight and prayer. Behind him, the SUV's spotlight swept the woods. They'd lost him. For now. Warren drove for 2 hours, taking random turns, doubling back, using every evasion technique he could imagine. Eventually, he found himself on a rural highway heading north. The GPS said Portland was 4 hours away. At a 24-hour gas station, Warren paid cash for fuel and coffee. In the bathroom, he checked his phone. 7 missed calls from Sergio. 3 from Lori. 1 from a number he didn't recognize. He called the unknown number. Mr. McKay. A woman's voice, elderly but steady. This is Catherine Sellers. I received your letter. And about an hour ago, Dr. Rachel Fry called to warn me you were coming. I have a guest room and many answers. But you should know, they'll be watching my house. Who will? Everyone who wants the truth buried. Which means you're walking into a trap by coming here. But it may be the only trap where you'll learn enough to fight back. Warren checked his rearview mirror. Empty road, no headlights. I'm coming anyway. I expected you would. Your father was the same way. Brave to the point of foolishness. Catherine's voice softened. Paul McKay was a good man, Warren. He didn't deserve what happened to him. Neither did your mother. Come to Portland. I'll tell you everything. She gave him an address and hung up. Warren drove north into the pre-dawn darkness, toward answers that might kill him, but also toward the truth that might set him free. Chapter 5. The Architect. Warren reached Portland at 7:42 a.m., exhausted and wired on gas station coffee. Catherine Sellers lived in a modest craftsman house in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place where nothing dramatic ever happened, which was probably the point. He parked 3 blocks away and approached on foot, watching for surveillance. A postal worker made deliveries. A jogger ran past. Everything looked normal, which meant nothing. Catherine answered his knock before he finished knocking. A thin woman in her 70s with sharp eyes and steel gray hair pulled into a bun. She studied him intently. "You have your mother's eyes," she said finally. Diana was beautiful. "Come in quickly." The interior was cluttered with books and papers, the accumulated debris of someone who'd spent decades researching. Catherine led Warren to a back study where every surface was covered with files, photographs, and documents. "Coffee," she offered. "I've had enough to corrode my stomach lining." "Answers would be better." Catherine smiled grimly. "Direct." "Good. We don't have time for pleasantries anyway. They'll have tracked you here by now. Your phone, probably. Turn it off and remove the battery." Warren obeyed. Catherine pulled down the shades and activated what looked like a signal jammer, more sophisticated than Rachel's device. "My husband Benjamin was Helix Crown's lead geneticist," Catherine began. "He believed they were curing disease. By the time he realized the truth, he was complicit in something monstrous." She pulled out a Warren journal, Benjamin's handwriting filling the pages. Helix Crown wasn't about curing disease. It was about creating enhanced humans for military applications. Super soldiers with accelerated healing, disease immunity, extended lifespans. The funding came from defense contractors and private billionaires like Raymond White, who saw the commercial potential. "My parents were test subjects?" "Not exactly." Catherine opened a file containing photographs of a young couple Warren recognized from old family albums. Paul and Diana McKay, decades younger, smiling at the camera outside a medical facility. They were paid volunteers. Helix Crown recruited couples who wanted children but had fertility issues. They offered free treatment, experimental gene therapy that would optimize the embryo while solving the fertility problem. Warren felt sick. "I was made to order. You were the result of their last successful trial before the program collapsed. 47 couples participated over 6 years. Most embryos didn't survive the term. Those that did either died in infancy or developed severe complications. You're one of only 3 subjects who survived past age 10. The other 2 died in their 20s, one from organ failure, one from what was ruled a suicide but was likely murder." Who else knew about this? Besides the Helix team? The investors, obviously. Various government agencies that were supposed to provide oversight but were paid to look the other way. And the families themselves, though most were threatened into silence after Helix shut down. Catherine's expression hardened. "Your parents tried to speak out. Benjamin tried to help them. We all paid for it." She showed Warren another document, a death certificate for Benjamin Sweeney dated March 15th, 1992. Cause of death, cardiac arrest. Attached was a coroner's report noting unusual toxicology findings, flagged but never investigated. "Poison?" Warren asked. "Almost certainly." Benjamin had arranged to meet with a congressional investigator. He died the night before the meeting. The investigator died in a car accident 2 weeks later. Your mother died 6 months after that. Your father survived by going silent, never speaking about Helix, raising you quietly, hoping you'd live a normal life. Until someone decided I was a loose end. Until Raymond White decided the technology was worth reviving. He's been hunting down surviving subjects for their genetic material. 3 years ago, he launched a new company, Gene Future Corporation. Officially, they're developing targeted cancer therapies. Unofficially, they're trying to recreate Helix Crown's work with better technology and fewer ethical constraints. Warren thought of Dr. Sean Goff, White's head of research. Do they know about me? They do now. Your blood donation triggered alerts in medical databases White has been monitoring for decades. He sent Sergio Barnett to collect you under the guise of government protection. What does White actually want? Catherine pulled out a genetic sequencing report, decades old. Your DNA contains modifications Benjamin designed, the most stable expression of enhanced traits ever achieved. If White can decode why you succeeded where others failed, he can mass-produce the modifications. Imagine a world where genetic enhancement is available to the highest bidder. Designer babies for the elite. Super soldiers for private militaries. Workers who never get sick or tire. It's eugenics dressed up as medical progress. So, I destroy the blood samples. Go into hiding. Deny White the data. It's too late for that. Sergio already sent your genetic sequence to White's lab. They're analyzing it now. But there's something they don't know. Something Benjamin built into your genes as insurance. Catherine showed Warren a complex genetic diagram. See this sequence? Benjamin called it a poison pill. Your enhanced traits are linked to a genetic instability that only activates under certain conditions. If White tries to extract and replicate your modifications without understanding the full picture, the process will fail catastrophically. Lethal mutations. Cellular breakdown. You're saying I'm booby-trapped? I'm saying Benjamin loved your parents enough to protect their son even after death. He made you invaluable, but also dangerous to weaponize. The key to stabilizing your genetics is in his research notes. Notes I've kept hidden for 30 years. She gestured to the files around them. This is Benjamin's complete helix crown documentation. Every experiment, every result, every safety protocol. White would kill to possess this, which means it's our leverage. Warren's mind raced. We trade the notes for safety? Some kind of deal with White. We trade nothing. We expose everything. Catherine's eyes blazed. We take Benjamin's research public, release it to medical journals, congressional committees, the media, destroy White's commercial advantage by making the information freely available. He can't monopolize what everyone knows. That would end genetic enhancement research entirely, close down legitimate work. Perhaps it would force the field into the light with proper oversight and ethics. Either way, it stops White from building an empire on my husband's corrupted legacy. Before Warren could respond, glass shattered in the front room. Smoke grenades bounced through the broken windows, filling the house with choking gray clouds. Catherine grabbed a fire extinguisher and a laptop bag. Back door. Now. Warren followed her through the kitchen as armed figures poured through the front entrance. Not police. No sirens or announcements. Private contractors. They burst into the backyard just as an SUV screeched into the alley. Kirk Blankenship leaned out the passenger window, gun raised. On the ground. Both of you. Catherine didn't hesitate. She hurled the fire extinguisher at Kirk's windshield. It struck with a tremendous crack, spider-webbing the glass. Kirk ducked, and Warren used the distraction to vault the back fence, pulling Catherine after him. They ran through neighboring yards, Catherine surprisingly spry for her age. Behind them, Kirk's team fanned out in pursuit. The research, Warren shouted. You left it. Backed up in 3 locations, encrypted, Catherine gasped. The laptop has access. That's all we need. They emerged onto a residential street. Catherine flagged down a passing plumber's van, shoving a wad of bills at the startled driver. $500 for a ride downtown. No questions. The driver, a heavy-set man named Dave Rogers according to his work shirt, seemed to consider the moral implications for exactly 2 seconds before taking the money. Get in. They piled into the van among pipes and wrenches. Dave drove at a sedate, law-abiding pace while Kirk's SUV screamed past in the opposite direction, looking for them. You two robbing banks or something? Dave asked conversationally. Whistleblowing, Catherine said. Close enough. Dave dropped them at a public library downtown. Catherine led Warren to a private study room and booted up her laptop. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up encrypted files. I'm uploading Benjamin's research to a dead man's switch, she explained. If I don't check in every 6 hours, it automatically releases to 50 journalists, 10 congressional offices, and 5 medical ethics boards. Why will know about it soon. He'll have to decide whether killing us is worth the information going public. That's a hell of a bluff. Who says I'm bluffing? Warren's admiration for this woman grew. How do we prove White ordered the murders? Sergio will deny everything. We need evidence. We need a confession. On record. Catherine smiled coldly. And I know exactly how to get one. She made a phone call, putting it on speaker. After 3 rings, a smooth voice answered. Catherine Sellers. It's been a very long time. Raymond White himself. Not long enough, Raymond. We need to talk about Benjamin's research and about Warren McKay, who's sitting right here beside me. A pause. You have my attention. I have your entire future in my hands. Meet us tonight at the old Helix Crown facility site. Come alone, or the research goes public immediately. The facility was demolished 30 years ago. The foundation remains. You know the place. Midnight. Don't be late. Catherine hung up before White could respond. Warren stared at her. That was insane. He'll bring an army. Probably. But he'll also bring proof, documents, recordings, something to prove he owns the rights to Benjamin's work. White's ego won't let him resist. And that's when we take him down. Ow! Catherine's smile was sharp as broken glass. You're not the only one who spent 30 years preparing for this, Warren. Trust me. Tonight, we end this. Chapter 6. The Trap. The old Helix Crown site sat on 20 acres of industrial wasteland outside Portland. Contaminated soil, rusted chain-link fence, a cracked foundation where the laboratory once stood. The structure had been demolished in 1993 under court order, but the bones remained like a grave that wouldn't stay buried. Warren and Catherine arrived at 11:15 p.m., approaching through overgrown woods. Catherine moved with surprising confidence, navigating paths she'd clearly walked before. I used to bring flowers here, she said quietly, for Benjamin and all the others who died because of this place. Stupid, sentimental habit, but it helped me memorize the terrain. She led Warren to the foundation's edge, a massive concrete slab cracked by decades of weather and weeds. At the center, a steel hatch covered the old basement access. Catherine produced a key that looked original to the facility. Benjamin gave me this the day he died. Told me if anything happened, I should come here and document everything remaining below. I've kept it maintained as a fallback position. Emergency supplies, communications equipment, evidence cache. The hatch opened with a groan of protesting metal. Concrete steps descended into darkness. Catherine clicked on a flashlight, revealing a basement that was surprisingly intact. File cabinets, lab equipment under plastic tarps, a backup generator. Make yourself comfortable, Catherine said. We have an hour to prepare. Prepare for what, exactly? If White brings armed contractors, we're trapped down here. That's the idea. This basement has only one entrance but 3 escape routes. Maintenance tunnels connecting to the old facility's utility systems. White doesn't know about them. We do. She powered up the generator, and lights flickered to life. Then she opened a file cabinet and began distributing equipment. Recording devices, cameras, a laptop with satellite uplink. We're going to record White's confession. Video and audio transmitted in real time to a secure server. Even if he kills us, the evidence survives. Warren examined the camera setup. Professional grade, military spec. Where did you get this? I've had 30 years to plan and a federal wrongful death settlement that was very generous. Money well spent if it brings White down. Catherine checked her watch. He'll be here soon. You should know the full plan. White wants you alive for your genetic material. He'll try to negotiate, threaten, bargain. Let him talk. The more he reveals, the stronger our evidence. And when he's done talking, we escape through the tunnels, release the recordings, and disappear until White is arrested. Simple. Too simple, Warren thought, but he didn't have better ideas. At 11:47 p.m., they heard vehicles approaching. Warren peered through a basement window well. 3 black SUVs, doors opening to disgorge armed men. At least 15 contractors, all carrying serious hardware. And stepping out of the lead vehicle, Raymond White himself. Even at 71, White projected authority. Silver hair, perfectly styled, expensive suit, confident stride. Behind him walked Dr. Sean Goff, carrying a metal briefcase. Mr. McKay. White's voice carried across the wasteland. Catherine, I appreciate your sense of theater, meeting at the scene of your husband's greatest work. But it's cold out here. Shall we speak more comfortably? Catherine activated the recording equipment and spoke into a microphone that projected her voice through speakers Warren had noticed. Come down alone, Raymond. You and Goff. Leave your thugs outside. White consulted with his security chief, Kirk Blankenship. Warren noted with grim satisfaction. Kirk was arguing against it, but White overruled him. Ego trumping caution, just as Catherine predicted. White and Goff descended the stairs. Warren and Catherine waited in the basement center, surrounded by equipment and old ghosts. White's eyes scanned the space with barely concealed nostalgia. My God, I haven't been down here since 1991. We accomplished miracles in this room, created the future. You created abominations, Catherine shot back, and murdered anyone who objected. Strong words. Can you prove them? White's smile was cold. I've been very careful over the years. Very thorough. Then why come alone to meet us? Warren asked. If you're innocent, you'd have brought lawyers and police. Because I'm a businessman, Mr. McKay, and you represent the most valuable commodity on Earth, stable genetic enhancement. I'm prepared to offer you $20 million for exclusive rights to your genome, full sequencing, tissue samples, and your cooperation in replicating the results. So you can sell superhuman genes to the highest bidder, so I can cure disease, extend human lifespan, eliminate genetic disorders. The Helix Crown project failed because Benjamin Sweeney was too cautious, too bound by outdated ethics. With modern technology and your stable genetics as a template, I can achieve what he couldn't, human perfection. Warren felt rage building. My parents weren't pursuing perfection. They just wanted a child. And they got one. A magnificent specimen. You should be grateful. They're dead because of you. White's mask of civility slipped. They're dead because they were weak. Paul McKay threatened to expose the program when it was on the verge of breakthrough. He would have destroyed decades of research over maudlin concerns about consent and natural order. I protected the work. That's all. You ordered their deaths, Catherine said. Her recording devices were capturing everything, red lights blinking. White noticed. His eyes narrowed. Clever, but inadmissible in court. I can claim duress, manipulation, edited recordings. You have nothing. Goff stepped forward, opening his briefcase. Inside were syringes, scanning equipment, collection vials. Mr. McKay, please. This doesn't have to be adversarial. Donate samples voluntarily. Help us help humanity. Like you helped the other Helix subjects? The ones who died of complications? Goff had the grace to look uncomfortable. Those were tragic losses. But science requires sacrifice. Other people's sacrifice, Warren noted. Never yours. Enough philosophy, White snapped. He pulled out a phone and made a call. Kirk, I'm afraid our negotiation has failed. Please come collect our guests. Footsteps on the stairs. Kirk and two contractors descending. Catherine smiled. Now, Warren. Warren pulled a device from his pocket. A modified signal jammer Catherine had given him. He activated it, and every light in the basement went dark. Emergency power died. In the sudden blackness, Warren moved on muscle memory toward the escape tunnel Catherine had shown him. Chaos erupted. Shouting. Flashlight beams cutting through darkness. Gunfire. Wild shots meant to intimidate rather than hit. Warren found the tunnel entrance, a maintenance shaft hidden behind a false wall. Catherine was already there, laptop bag in hand. They crawled through, sealing the passage behind them. The tunnel was narrow and foul-smelling, and used for decades. They crawled for what felt like hours, but was probably 10 minutes, emerging in a drainage culvert half a mile from the Helix site. Behind them, lights and sirens. Kirk's team discovering the tunnel too late. Catherine checked her laptop. Recordings uploaded successfully, encrypted and distributed. White just confessed to multiple murders on camera. It's over. But Warren's instincts screamed warning. It's too easy. White's too smart to. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Sergio Barnett's voice, urgent. Warren, listen carefully. You've been played. Catherine Sellers isn't who she claims. Check her background. Really check it. Then call me back. The line went dead. Warren looked at Catherine. In the harsh LED light of her laptop screen, her expression was unreadable. What did he say? She asked. I should check your background. And will you believe Sergio over me? Warren wanted to say no, but the analytical part of his brain was already noting inconsistencies. Catherine's equipment was too sophisticated. Her planning too perfect. her knowledge too current for someone who'd supposedly spent 30 years in hiding. "Who are you really?" Warren asked quietly. Catherine's smile was sad. "Exactly who I said. Benjamin's widow. Your parents' friend. But also," she pulled out an ID badge. "Federal Bureau of Investigation. I've been undercover for 5 years, building a case against White. When you surfaced, you became the final piece, living proof of White's crimes and the bait to draw him into confessing." Catherine's expression hardened. "Everything I told you is true, Warren, including that White murdered your parents. But I used you to get him. I'm sorry." Warren felt betrayed and relieved in equal measure. "The recording? Real evidence, admissible in court. White will be arrested within the hour. It's over. You're safe." But as sirens approached and federal vehicles surrounded them, Warren couldn't shake Sergio's warning. If Catherine was FBI, why did Sergio want him to doubt her? What was he still missing? Chapter 7. The Double Cross. The FBI field office was modern and sterile. Fluorescent lights, beige walls, the smell of burnt coffee and bureaucracy. Warren sat in an interview room, Catherine across from him, 2 other agents flanking the door. "We need your full statement," Catherine said, her demeanor now purely professional. "Everything from the blood donation to tonight." Warren recounted it all, his mind still spinning. Catherine took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. Through the one-way mirror, Warren sensed others watching. "What happens now?" Warren asked when he'd finished. "White is being arrested as we speak. Goff is cooperating, already providing documentation of White's illegal genetic research program. Sergio Barnett is wanted for questioning, but has disappeared. You'll be placed in protective custody until the trial. More cages, safe houses with agents you can trust. This time, for real." Catherine's expression softened. "I know you feel manipulated. You were. But everything I said about wanting justice for Benjamin and your parents, that was true. This wasn't just a case to me." Before Warren could respond, another agent entered, a senior woman with commander's bars. She whispered urgently to Catherine, whose face went pale. "What?" Warren demanded. Catherine turned to him, visibly shaken. "Raymond White is dead. Heart attack during his arrest 30 minutes ago. Sean Goff is also dead, apparent suicide in custody. And the evidence we collected tonight, it's been corrupted. Complete data loss." The room fell silent. Warren's mind raced. "That's not coincidence. Someone erased it. Someone with access to your systems." "Impossible. Our servers have." "Someone inside," Warren interrupted. "Someone who didn't want White talking. Someone with more to lose than White did." Catherine grabbed her phone, making rapid calls. But Warren already knew. Whoever was behind this was always 3 steps ahead. The door burst open. Sergio Barnett stood there, flanked by U.S. Marshals. "I need to speak with Warren McKay. Alone. Now." Catherine stood. "You're wanted for questioning. You don't get. I have a federal warrant overriding your jurisdiction, signed 1 hour ago by a national security judge." Sergio handed her documents. "Warren McKay is classified as a matter of critical infrastructure. This investigation is above your clearance level, Agent Sellers." Catherine read the warrant, her expression darkening. "This is insane. This is necessary. Mr. McKay, with me. Please." Warren had no good options. He followed Sergio out, leaving Catherine furious and helpless behind the mirror. Sergio led him to a black SUV idling outside. Inside was a man Warren didn't recognize, early 50s, military bearing, 3 stars on his collar. General rank. "Mr. McKay, I'm General Orlando Escobar, Defense Intelligence Agency. You're in serious danger, but not from who you think. Please sit. We have much to discuss." Warren got in. The SUV pulled away from the FBI building with marshal escort. "Raymond White was a frontman," Escobar began. "The real power behind Helix Crown was never a private billionaire. It was a classified DoD program called Project Ascension. White provided civilian cover and plausible deniability. When Helix Crown collapsed publicly, Ascension continued in secret. For 30 years, Warren asked incredulously. For 33 years, we've been tracking the original subjects, studying the failures, trying to understand why the modifications usually killed their hosts. You're the answer, Mr. McKay. You're the only stable success. And now, elements within Ascension want to eliminate you to bury the program permanently. Why? Because a new administration is coming to power. One that will audit black programs like Ascension. If your existence becomes known, it proves illegal human experimentation continued long after Helix Crown was supposedly shut down. People will go to prison. Careers will end. Billions in funding will dry up. Sergio spoke up. I wasn't working for White. I was working for a faction inside Ascension that wants to preserve you, study your genetics, learn from them, but keep you alive. The people who killed White and Goff are the other faction. They want all evidence destroyed, including you. Warren's head spun. How do I know you're telling the truth? Escobar handed him a tablet displaying classified documents, Helix Crown files, Project Ascension briefings, kill orders with Warren's name on them. The authentication codes looked genuine. Because I'm offering you something White never would, the truth and a choice. Help us understand your genetics, contribute to legitimate medical research under full ethical oversight, and we'll protect you. Refuse, and the cleanup faction will hunt you forever. What about the people responsible for my parents' deaths? Dead or arrested? White's entire network is collapsing, but Ascension runs deeper. We need time to root out the bad actors without destroying the beneficial research. That requires your cooperation. Warren thought of Catherine's plan, expose everything, burn it all down. But that was before he understood the scope. This wasn't one billionaire's vanity project. This was institutional. I want guarantees, Warren said, in writing. Full legal protections. Veto power over how my genetic information is used. And I want Catherine Sellers and Dr. Rachel Fry protected too. They helped me when they didn't have to. Agreed, Escobar said. But there's one more thing. We believe there are other stable subjects, survivors who don't know what they are. We need your help finding them before the cleanup faction does. You want me to be bait again? I want you to save lives, Escobar corrected. Your choice, Mr. McKay. Warren looked out the window at the city passing by. Normal people living normal lives, unaware of the secret wars fought in the shadows. He thought of Andrea, probably worried sick. Of Vernon, annoyed by his absence. Of the ordinary existence he'd taken for granted until a blood donation changed everything. I'll help, Warren said, but on my terms. And the second I think you're lying, I disappear and take everything public. Deal. Escobar extended his hand. Deal. They shook, and Warren wondered if he'd just made a terrible mistake. But it was too late to back out now. Chapter 8. The Hunt. 3 months later, Warren McKay stood in a genetics laboratory at an undisclosed military facility, watching his blood cells divide under a microscope. Dr. Trina Holden, the lead researcher assigned to his case, pointed to the screen with barely contained excitement. See that? Your cells regenerate at twice the normal rate, with zero mutation accumulation. It's extraordinary, if we can isolate the mechanism. You've been saying that for 12 weeks, Warren noted. Any actual progress? Trina smiled sheepishly. Science is slow. But yes, we've identified 3 key gene sequences that seem to confer stability. The problem is they interact in ways we don't fully understand. Benjamin Sweeney was brilliant. His modifications are elegantly integrated. Warren had spent the past 3 months in protective custody that felt less like prison and more like graduate school. Daily testing, genetic analysis, consultations with ethics boards. General Escobar kept his word. Everything documented, everything consensual, everything legal. Meanwhile, Sergio Barnett's team had been hunting other Helix subjects. They'd found 2, Jennifer Anthony, a 36-year-old veterinarian in Montana, and Corey Cameron, a 29-year-old construction worker in Texas. Both showed stable modifications, though less pronounced than Warren's. Both agreed to cooperate after learning the truth. Catherine Sellers had been reinstated with the FBI, now serving as liaison between the Bureau and Project Ascension. She'd visited Warren twice. Relationships still strained, but gradually healing. Any word on the cleanup faction? Warren asked Trina. Above my clearance level. But I hear things. They've gone quiet. Too quiet. That worried Warren. Sergio believed the faction was consolidating, planning something big. But without concrete intelligence, they were blind. Warren's phone buzzed. Andrea. They've been talking regularly. Warren carefully lying about his extended medical treatment. She deserved better, but the truth would endanger her. Hey, he answered. Warren, where are you really? Andrea's voice was strained. And don't say Virginia. I called the hospital you supposedly checked into. They've never heard of you. Warren's blood went cold. Andrea, I'm a nurse, Warren. I know medical facilities. I know procedures. Whatever you're involved in, I want to help. But I can't if you keep lying. Before Warren could respond, alarms shrieked through the facility. Red lights flashed. Trina's expression went from curious to terrified in seconds. Breach, someone shouted over the intercom. Security breach, level 3. All personnel evacuate. Gunfire erupted somewhere above them. Warren grabbed Trina's arm. Where's the emergency exit? Sub-basement through the labs. But if they've breached level 3, they're all ready. The door exploded inward. Armed figures in black tactical gear poured through, weapons raised. But they weren't firing. They were hurting. Warren McKay, come with us quietly. The lead operative's voice was distorted through a helmet. Everyone else, stay down. Warren recognized the stance, the training. These weren't random attackers. These were operators. Probably former military. Probably Ascension's cleanup faction. But they wanted him alive. Run. Warren shoved Trina toward the back exit, then bolted in the opposite direction, drawing the operatives after him. The facility descended into chaos. Scientists fleeing. Security engaging the invaders. Smoke grenades creating confusion. Warren ran through corridors he'd memorized during 3 months of careful observation. He'd known this was coming, had prepared for it. The facility had security, but security could be breached. The real question was escape. He reached the server room, where project data was stored. Sergio had given him emergency access codes for exactly this scenario. Warren uploaded everything to an encrypted cloud service, then activated the deletion protocol. If the cleanup faction wanted his genetics, they'd have to take him alive. All the research data was now beyond their reach. Footsteps behind him. Warren ducked into a ventilation shaft. Tight squeeze, but he'd practiced this route. He crawled through metal tunnels as explosions rocked the facility above. He emerged in a parking garage. His designated escape vehicle, a nondescript sedan with keys in the ignition, waited in spot G47. Sergio's contingency planning. Warren drove out through the chaos. Guards too busy fighting invaders to stop fleeing personnel. Behind him, the facility burned. He called Sergio on a secure line. They hit the lab. Multiple casualties. I got out with the data. Good. Meet at Rally Point Delta. We need to move you immediately. No, I'm done running. It's time to end this. Warren, that's not the plan. The plan failed the moment they found the facility. They're inside Ascension, Sergio. Deep inside. Feeding them locations, intelligence. We need to draw them out. And I'm the only bait they care about. A long silence. Then, what do you have in mind? I make myself visible. Public. Somewhere they can't act without exposing themselves. Somewhere with cameras and witnesses. They'll kill you. They'll try. But we'll be ready. Warren hung up and made another call. Andrea answered on the first ring. Warren, what's happening? I heard explosions on your end. I need you to trust me. Are you somewhere safe? I'm at the hospital. Warren, you're scaring me. Good. Stay scared. Stay alert. And if anyone approaches you claiming to know me, run. Call the police. Don't trust anyone. What are you involved in? Saving lives, including yours. I love you, Andrea. Remember that. He ended the call before she could respond, hating himself but knowing it was necessary. Warren drove to Portland, to the one place where everything started and where it needed to end. The old Helix Crown facility site. This time he was ready. Chapter 9. The Resolution. Warren reached the Helix Crown site at sunset, the ruins cast in golden light that made the wasteland almost beautiful. He'd called ahead, not to Sergio, but to Catherine. The FBI would be watching. Ascension would be watching. the cleanup faction would come. All the pieces on the board converging on one location. Warren descended into the basement again, activating lights and equipment Catherine had maintained. But this time, he added his own modifications, cameras, recording devices, weapons he'd acquired during his 3 months of preparation. He wasn't the same naive analyst who'd walked into a blood drive truck 3 months ago. He'd learned from his enemies, adapted, become what he needed to be. Dangerous. At 8:47 p.m., the first arrivals came. Sergio Barnett and a full tactical team. Genuine Ascension loyalists, according to Sergio's assurances. "This is insane," Sergio said, taking in Warren's preparations. "You're making yourself a target. I've been a target since I was born. Now I'm choosing the battlefield." At 9:15 p.m., Catherine arrived with FBI backup. She and Sergio eyed each other warily. "Jurisdictional nightmare," Catherine muttered. "But I suppose we're on the same side tonight." "Strange times," Sergio agreed. At 9:43 p.m., the cleanup faction arrived. They came in force, 20 operatives, military-grade equipment, absolute professionalism. Their commander removed his helmet, revealing a face Warren recognized from classified briefings. General Vernon McKenzie, Warren's boss, his actual boss at Apex Therapeutics. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. "Vernon, I'm sorry, Warren. Truly." Vernon's expression was regretful, but resolute. "You were never supposed to find out what you are. The blood drive was my mistake. I thought we'd screened all collection sites. When you flagged positive, I tried to contain it. But you're too smart, too resourceful. You killed White. You killed Goff. I cleaned up loose ends. Well, I was going to talk. Goff was too guilty to stay silent. But you're different. You're not a loose end, Warren. You're a miracle. The only stable expression of Helix Crown's work. If that becomes public, the program, the legitimate research that could cure disease, extend life, eliminate suffering, it all ends. Because you broke every ethical rule to achieve it, Catherine said coldly. Because we did what was necessary. Vernon's composure cracked. Do you know how many lives we could save? How many diseases we could cure? But bureaucrats and ethicists want to strangle progress with red tape and moral hand-wringing. Helix Crown failed because they published their work, drew scrutiny. Project Ascension succeeds because we operate in shadow. Sergio stepped forward. It's over, Vernon. Stand down. Warren's already uploaded all the research. If anything happens to him, it goes public automatically. Vernon smiled sadly. I know, which is why I'm here to negotiate, not fight. Warren, I'm offering you a deal. Work with us, voluntarily. Help us perfect the modifications. In exchange, we'll provide you with anything you want. Money, security, legacy. Your parents died for this research. Don't let their sacrifice be meaningless. Warren thought of Paul McKay, raising him alone, never speaking of Helix Crown. Of Diana McKay, killed for wanting to expose the truth. Of Benjamin Sweeney, poisoned for his conscience. My parents' sacrifice was meaningless, Warren said quietly. Because they didn't choose it. You chose for them. Just like you're trying to choose for me now. He pulled out a remote detonator. Vernon's eyes widened. This basement is rigged with explosives, Warren continued. Enough to destroy everything here and everyone in it. Including me. Including the last stable Helix subject. If I die, the research dies with me. Your program ends. You're bluffing, Vernon said, but his voice wavered. Am I? You've read my psychological profile. Do I seem like someone who bluffs? The standoff stretched. Vernon's operators fingered their weapons. Sergio's team mirrored them. Catherine spoke urgently into her radio, calling for more backup. Even if you detonate, Vernon said finally, it solves nothing. The research is in your genes. We'll extract it from your corpse if necessary. No, you won't. Warren held up a vial, his own blood. See this shimmer? That's the genetic instability Catherine told me about. Benjamin Sweeney's poison pill. My enhanced traits are stable while I'm alive because my living biology regulates them. But the moment I die, the instability activates. My cells break down into toxic sludge within hours. You get nothing usable. It was a lie, but a convincing one, backed by enough technical detail to seem plausible. Vernon studied Warren's expression, searching for tells. You've changed. 3 months ago, you were terrified. 3 months ago, I didn't know what I was fighting for. Now I do. The question is, Vernon, are you willing to die for your cause? Because I'm willing to die for mine. Warren's thumb hovered over the detonator. The basement fell silent. Then Vernon lowered his weapon. Stand down, he told his team. It's over. Sir, one operative protested. I said stand down. Vernon's voice cracked. I won't murder Warren McKay. Paul was my friend. I recruited him into Helix Crown. I promised him his son would be protected, and I've broken that promise enough. Catherine's FBI team moved in, disarming Vernon's operators. Vernon allowed himself to be handcuffed, his expression distant. Did you order my parents' deaths? Warren asked. No, that was White, acting independently. But I didn't stop him when I learned what he'd done. So I'm guilty regardless. Vernon looked at Warren with something like respect. You're stronger than your father. He will be proud. As the FBI led Vernon away, Sergio approached Warren. The detonator? Warren handed it over. Sergio examined it, then laughed bitterly. Not even connected to anything. You were bluffing. I learned from the best. What happens now? Trials. Investigations. Publicity you can't avoid. Project Ascension will be exposed, shut down, rebuilt under proper oversight. Some good research will be lost, but so will a lot of crimes. Sergio extended his hand. You did it, Warren. You won. Warren shook his hand, feeling hollow. Doesn't feel like winning. It never does. 6 months later, Warren McKay stood in a congressional hearing room, giving testimony about Helix Crown and Project Ascension. The hearings have been running for weeks, revelations shocking the nation, careers destroyed, laws rewritten. Vernon McKenzie was in federal prison, along with 17 others. Raymond White's empire had collapsed. Sean Goff's research was being reviewed by independent ethics boards. The two other stable subjects, Jennifer Anthony and Corey Cameron, had chosen different paths. Jennifer went public, becoming an advocate for genetic research oversight. Corey disappeared, wanting nothing to do with his modified heritage. Warren had found a middle path. He worked with a team of ethicists and geneticists at Johns Hopkins, using his genetics to develop legitimate medical treatments under full transparency. The research was slow, careful, and clean. Andrea had stayed with him through it all, though the relationship was different now, tempered by truth and trauma, but deeper for it. They'd moved in together, finding normalcy in small moments. Catherine Sellers retired from the FBI, finally able to rest. She and Warren met monthly for coffee, honoring Benjamin's memory and the others who died. Rachel Fry was safe, her daughter Allison unharmed. She'd returned to nursing, though she still had nightmares. Warren's testimony concluded. As he left the hearing room, reporters swarmed with questions he'd learned to deflect. Outside, Andrea waited by the car. She smiled as Warren approached. How'd it go? Same as yesterday, and the day before, and probably tomorrow too. Warren kissed her. But it's progress. Your father would be proud, she said, echoing Vernon's words from months ago. Warren thought about Paul McKay, the accountant who carried impossible secrets, who raised his genetically modified son in quiet dignity, who died protecting the truth. About Diana McKay, who paid the ultimate price for wanting to speak out. I hope so, Warren said. I really hope so. They drove home through Washington traffic, just